If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 26, Wave of Drowners. Upon hearing Gerald's conclusion, Wayne immediately cheered up, and he promptly executed an inverted triangle gesture with his left hand, fortifying his Quen seal with an additional layer. From his perspective, drowners weren't particularly frightening, but they posed a considerable challenge. In areas with dense fog, there was a likelihood of encountering fogelers, and they could be found in swamps, mountain passes, rivers, and lakes. Even in the absence of natural fog, these creatures had the ability to generate or summon dense fog on their own. The thick fog served a dual purpose for the fogelers. Not only did it conceal the creature itself, but also its weaponry. These beings deftly manipulated the fog, rendering travelers unseen and unheard. Much like glowworms, they emitted a faint light, enticing the lost into their lairs situated in swamps, caves, or ravines. Resembling goblins but even more grotesque, they possessed sharp claws and powerful arms, capable of inflicting more damage than a swung knife. Adding to the challenge, the fogelers boasted intelligence surpassing that of drowners. They excelled in deception, seduction, and confusion, making them adept at manipulating and confounding individuals. Often, the fogelers didn't need to resort to direct attacks. Instead, they could drive their prey to madness, leading them into swamps and patiently awaiting their demise as they succumbed to the water. Recalling the knowledge documented in the book, Wayne trailed behind Gerald, tracking the footprints on the ground. Before long, they reached the end of the corridor, where a gate stood adorned with intricate statues. Beyond the gate lay darkness. However, under the Witcher's heightened vision, both Wayne and Gerald could clearly see that there was a spacious viewing platform connected to the door. Positioned at the center of the platform was a nearly 20-meter-long arched stone bridge. Before they got close, the two could hear the slight sound of running water coming from the stone bridge and the platform, as well as the unique croaking sounds of fogelers when they talked and moved. Realizing that they were approaching the monsters, both of them slowed down their movements, concentrated their minds more, and moved slowly and carefully towards the periphery of the platform. When they reached the edge of the platform surrounded by marble railings, a scalp-numbing scene appeared before their eyes. Beneath the arched bridge, a huge pond similar to an ornamental pond features came into view. The surroundings exhibited signs of professional design, with the pond's end connecting to a flowing underground river. A continuous influx of clean water ensured that the water level remained consistently at half a person's height. Some ornamental plants that can survive in a dark environment are growing luxuriantly added to design the ambience of the area. However, due to the long-term neglect and the special terrain, dozens of drowners, large and small, have gathered in the pond. They seem to regard this place as a nest, and they are running around in the pond happily and freely. Seeing this, Wayne gasped. Although the drowners were not considered as powerful monsters, they were not easy to deal with in such a large number. Gerald, seemingly accustomed to facing challenges, had no expression on his face. He glanced back at Wayne, gesturing towards the marble railing of the platform and indicating the exits on both sides leading away from the pond. He assumed a defensive posture. Understanding Gerald's signal, Wayne quickly grasped the situation. There was a gap of several meters between the platform they were standing on and the bottom of the pond. With the drowners' jumping ability, it was impossible to climb onto the platform from their positions. Recognizing the advantage of the terrain, Wayne and Gerald positioned themselves to guard the two narrow stairs on the edge of the platform. By doing so, they aimed to exploit the landscape and restrict the number of enemies they would confront at any given time to 1 or 2. Wayne nodded to Gerald and then gestured towards the staircase on the right, indicating that he would take responsibility for defending that side. But when he really reached that position, his heartbeat couldn't help but speed up. This was the first time he faced so many monsters. When dealing with monsters in the past, he rarely dealt with multiple enemies. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid, but besides being afraid, he was more excited. He stood at the entrance above the stairs, looked at the dozens of drowners in the pond, and after a few seconds of consideration, he chose the strongest one among them. He made a gesture of the axis sign with his left-hand fingers facing the air, held his breath, and gently pushed forward. An invisible wave shot out from Wayne's finger and rushed into the brain of the strong drowner. The drowner, that was running, stopped immediately, as Wayne applied the axis sign. After a moment of apparent confusion, it shook its head, emitting a fierce roar. Raising its sharp claws, the water ghost viciously seized the one nearest to it, showcasing a sudden turn in its behavior. A sharp squeak filled the air, accompanied by a splatter of blood. The targeted drowner, displaying remarkable strength, executed a swift and unexpected attack. Its claws pierced directly into the stomach of another drowner, tearing open the round belly and exposing all its internal organs. However, the vitality of the drowner is quite amazing, even after sustaining a fatal injury. Despite the severity of the wound, it did not succumb to immediate death. Though the reason for its companion's sudden attack remained unclear, the inherent aggression within its body propelled the injured drowner to retaliate fiercely. Acting on instinct, the drowner, devoid of contemplation, seized the powerful drowner by the neck with its sharp claws. It slashed open the flesh and blood vessels, causing a torrent of blood to gush out and drench its own body. Without hesitation, the surrounding drowners joined the frenzy. Ignoring the reasons behind their companion's sudden attack, they charged forward, tearing the powerful drowner into countless pieces. Eliminating the two drowners brought a surge of excitement to Wayne. However, just as he continued to use the Axis sign once more and replicate his earlier success, one of the drowner in the pond had already spotted him. The roar of the drowner which spotted Wayne, triggered chaos throughout the entire pond. Nearly every drowner sensed that an enemy had entered their territory, scrambling on all fours in heightened excitement as they surged toward Wayne's position. Yet, Wayne wasn't alone in this battle. Gerald, stationed at the stairs on the left, recognized Wayne's initiation of the attack. Mimicking the Axis sign, he redirected a drowner that was charging towards Wayne, compelling it to turn back and attack its own companion. Although the drowner was instantly dismembered by its companions, Gerald's actions successfully separated half of the enemies. But even so, Wayne still saw nearly 30 of them running towards his position. If they were all squeezed to the stairs and the silver sword had to be used to attack them, it would be a hard and long battle. Perhaps offense is the best defense. This thought flashed through Wayne's mind. He turned over and stood on the railing of the platform, reached out and took out a pineapple-sized bomb from his pocket, and threw it towards the center of the drowners. The moment the bomb fell into the group of drowners, his right hand suddenly pushed forward, and an orange flame instantly enveloped the bomb and the drowners around it. Bang! Under the shroud of flames, the bomb exploded suddenly, seriously injuring 5 drowners around it, and the shock wave formed by the bomb also blasted more of them around it away from their original places, rolling on the ground continuously, which successfully destroyed their crazy momentum of swarming over. Chapter 27, Fierce Battle. The battle unfolded smoothly as the bomb and the charged igniflame tore the drowners apart. This combination successfully eliminated 5 or 6 of the drowners. However, the more stupid the creature is, the less able it is to judge the strength gap between the two sides. Those drowners who were not affected by the explosion and flames still had no fear at all. They bypassed those companions who were seriously injured by the explosion and continued to rush towards him with teeth and claws. Wayne jumped off the railing and returned to the top of the stairs. Instead of raising his sword to defend himself immediately, he took a few steps to the exit of the stairs, formed a seal with one hand, and pushed down, setting a magic trap at the exit of the stairs. The ground was instantly adorned with a magic circle, emanating a purple magical radiance. Standing within it, Wayne felt no discomfort, but any drowners that rushed in would be immediately affected. The magic circle bound them with magic power, significantly slowing down their movement speed. While the sign itself didn't inflict direct damage, its special effect proved highly suitable for defensive operations in this advantageous terrain. It was the preferred choice for witchers when dealing with ghosts, spirits, and other nimble and fast monsters. The only regret was that, due to limited materials, both Gerald and Wayne had only one bomb each. Otherwise, burying a few on this path that the monsters must pass through may directly kill most of them. Wayne calmly waited for the arrival of the monsters when he suddenly heard a loud explosion behind him. With a quick glance, he found that Gerald had also used a similar method to him, getting the bomb into the drowners and detonating it. Despite Gerald's ignisign not having the reach to attack as compared to Wayne's, he patiently waited until the drowners closed in on the entrance of the stairs. At that moment, he ignited the fuse and dropped the bomb to detonate it. However, this proximity to the explosion meant that he too was caught in the blast. The force of the bomb sent mud, river water, and the flesh and blood of a few unfortunate drowners flying everywhere, drenching Gerald thoroughly. But no matter how embarrassing they were when the explosion was over and the water ghosts swarmed up the stairs, Wayne and Gerald had no choice but to wield their weapons and engage in combat against these foul-smelling monsters. As a seasoned veteran, Gerald was accustomed to such battles. Unfazed by the mud and blood splattered on his body, he leaped towards a charging drowner, deflecting its reaching arm with his shoulder. Raising the silver sword, he slashed down towards its head. The silver sword in the white wolf's hand emitted a faint glow. It was an elegant and slender blade adorned with various mysterious inscriptions. When it cleaved through the drowner's face, encountering minimal resistance, half of its head was severed instantly. Having successfully dispatched one of them with a single strike, Geralt wasted no time. He pivoted to evade the pounce of another drowner. The silver sword traced a flawless arc, slashing through the chest. The razor-sharp blade carved a wound over 1 meter long in the drowner's chest cavity. The immense force sent it plummeting to the ground in agony. Even through the gash, the still beating internal organs were visible. However, more of them surged up the stairs. Unconcerned about their fallen companions on the ground, they extended their claws, roared, and closed in on Geralt, forming a menacing circle around him. Despite Geralt's adept and nimble dodges, the sheer number of monsters surrounding him undeniably restricted the space for his evasions. Geralt found himself compelled to frequently cast the Quen sign while skillfully dodging. The monsters surrounding him fell one by one, each succumbing to the precision of his blade. Yet, as the battle raged on, the relentless advance of the drowners posed an ongoing challenge, demanding every ounce of Geralt's prowess. Fortunately, while these drowners were formidable, they ranked among the lower tiers of monsters. Although their claws could grip human flesh, they were incapable of penetrating metal armor. Wayne's battle situation was completely different from Geralt's. When drowners rushed up the stairs crowded together, the first thing they encountered was the Arden trap for slowing down. Wayne positioned himself at the center of the trap, avoiding direct contact with the drowners. Relying on his agility, he evaded the attacks whenever a drowner forcibly breached the trap in an attempt to reach him. Observing the opportune moment, when 2 or 3 drowners broke into the magic circle, Wayne extended his left hand. Channeling the magic, he used a powerful ard seal that had been strengthened by accumulating power, to send the drowners flying towards the rocky wall, causing their thin and small bodies to slam into the wall fiercely. Of course, this roundabout way of fighting not only takes a long time but also consumes the magic power in the body, which is not suitable for most witchers. However, with the blessing of the Swallow Potion and the Tawny Owl Potion, coursing through his veins, Wayne found his magic power at an optimal level. This surplus allowed him to utilize the Axii sign strategically. He would confuse 1 or 2 drowners, inducing them to turn on each other. This disrupted the attack rhythm of the drowners. In this way, the high-intensity battle lasted for more than 20 minutes. Geralt, who chose to fight hand-to-hand, ended the battle first. Panting heavily, he clamped the silver sword covered in blood and filth in the armpit and wiped off the blood on it. Then he gritted his teeth and walked towards Wayne, who was still fighting. As Geralt neared Wayne, the battle at this end was drawing to a close. One of the last 3 drowners fell under the sway of Wayne's Axii sign. Disregarding the imminent danger of its belly being ripped open, it sank its teeth into its fellow companion. But Wayne, the master who controlled it, showed no mercy, and directly used a powerful ignisign, causing the 3 drowners to be enveloped in fierce flames. Driven by an instinctive fear of flames and high temperatures, the drowner with its torn-apart stomach wrestled free from the control of the Axii seal. Enveloped in flames, it thrashed and screamed in wild desperation. However, before the inferno could consume it entirely, a silver sword, swiftly thrust into its eye socket, in an instant, and then turned the brain inside the skull into a paste. Geralt stood aside and watched Wayne's battle, and when he saw that although his armor was covered with dust, but there was no trace of being hit by monsters, he couldn't help but admire him. Wayne, I have to commend you for your prudence and careful approach. Rubbing his ribs, which had been hit by drowners' assaults, Geralt grinned through the pain. Even an old witcher like me can end up beaten all over when facing so many monsters. But you emerging unscathed from such a fierce battle is certainly commendable. Hearing Geralt's approval, Wayne turned his head and wiped the dust off his face with his hands. He grinned and was about to chat with Geralt for a few joking words when he suddenly focused his eyes and noticed a cloud of fuzzy and hazy gas behind Geralt. A hunchbacked, ugly monster with strong limbs and sharp claws emerged from the gas. Before the white wolf could react, the monster's sharp claws were already raised high, descending with a speed as if it were breaking a mountain and cracking a rock. Get out of the way! Geralt! Wayne instinctively yelled, forming a seal with his left hand and thrusting it forward. The seal struck the monster that had appeared suddenly. The attack unfolded with startling speed. Despite Geralt's attempt to dodge and avoid the lethal strike aimed at his neck, he still took a severe blow from the claw on his back. What? With a scream, the famous white wolf Geralt was ruthlessly sent flying. Chapter 28, Fogeler. Although it was just a quick glimpse, Wayne quickly deduced that the monster that had attacked Gerald was a Fogeler. Gerald did not anticipate that, while pushing his body to the limit in eliminating the drowners, there was, in fact, a Fogeler lurking nearby him. Seizing the opportunity, it managed to sneak up on him. This is also due to the excessive dark surrounding environment. Even though the cat potion enhanced their night vision, enabling them to perceive objects in low light, their vision remained almost monochromatic, making it difficult to discern the mist in the darkness clearly. This made the Fogeler almost invisible, without being noticed. To be on the safe side, Wayne refrained from immediately approaching Gerald, who had been thrown into the air. Instead, he promptly activated the remaining magic power within him and enveloped himself with a Quen shield. In the intense battle that transpired within the last half hour, Wayne almost cast nearly 30 spells, which was at a level that was hardly accomplished by any witcher. In addition to his talent, system bonuses, and potions, it is also thanks to the Doran ring he got yesterday. The ring granted him mana recovery with each enemy he vanquished, significantly enhancing his endurance. This enabled him to confront the group of drowners, a challenge that even the seasoned White Wolf, Gerald, has to approach cautiously, showcasing Wayne's prowess as a witcher. Wayne breathed a sigh of relief after adding a layer of insurance. Upon looking up, he noticed that the Fogeler, which had been launched into the air by his art sign, had seamlessly blended into the mist upon landing, escaping his sight. This kind of monster is quite troublesome. Apart from maintaining a high level of vigilance, the best way is to wait for it to show itself before taking the opportunity to deal with it. As a last resort, he could only give up chasing the enemy. He walked over to Gerald's side and began to check his injuries. Gerald seemed to be stunned by the powerful sneak attack just now. He put his hands on the ground, spit out a mouthful of blood, his arms trembled slightly, and tried his best to support his body, but failed. Seeing Wayne's approach, Gerald reached out and clasped Wayne's extended arm, using it as leverage to stand up. "How are you holding up, Gerald? Are your injuries manageable?" Witnessing Wayne's concerned expression, Gerald managed a wry smile. Physical pain had become a familiar companion to him, but the embarrassment of being injured in front of the young witcher made the famous White Wolf feel a little embarrassed. He shook his head lightly, and said in a hoarse voice, "My armor was not penetrated, but I've got some internal injuries, nothing too severe. Just be cautious, these Fogelers are stronger and craftier. It hasn't left, the battle is far from over." Upon confirming that Gerald was fine, Wayne breathed a sigh of relief but couldn't shake off a lingering sense of vigilance. Although he knew that it was common for witchers to be injured, he never expected that even a veteran like Gerald would turn over in front of an ordinary Fogeler. This realization heightened his awareness of the potential fatality when facing more powerful monsters or adversaries. Considering this, Wayne restrained the arrogance that arose from his victory over the drowners. He redirected his focus to perceive the environment around him. Although he has the blessing of system ability, his defensive power is not stronger than Gerald's. If he was the one who was hit in the sneak attack just now, he probably won't be better than Gerald. Monsters are creatures of instinct. While the Fogeler may possess an inherent cunning nature, its dominion over the underground ruins has likely left it devoid of fear or the concept of retreat. Struck into the air by Wayne's art sign, was far from restraining its sneak attack, it instead seemed more determined to launch a fierce counterattack. This also allowed Wayne, who had calmed down, to discover its traces. The Fogeler, displaying a level of cunning, had covered itself in mist, silently approaching the vulnerable Gerald from behind. It seemed determined to exploit the opportunity and launch a lethal attack on the already injured target. But Wayne didn't give it another chance. He let go of Gerald's arm, and directly turned back with a charged Axii sign, freezing the Fogeler's movement for a second, and then with the sword he directly pierced through its throat. Despite the piercing blow to its throat, the monster displayed an astonishing resilience, showing no immediate signs of weakening. Undeterred by its injuries, the Fogeler unleashed a fierce roar, waving its claws toward Wayne's sword-wielding right hand. In response, Wayne opted not to engage in a direct confrontation. Instead, he released his grip on the silver sword, rolled to the side to evade the creature's sharp claws, and swiftly positioned himself at the flank of the Fogeler. He didn't give the monster a chance to hide itself again in the mist. After stabilizing his figure, he immediately rushed towards the Fogeler, skillfully evading its slashing claws. He grasped the hilt of the sword again, and using the momentum of his body, he twisted it violently, directly wringing the Fogeler's head off. Losing its head, a large amount of blood spewed out, spraying everywhere like a fountain, and the Fogeler's body froze for a few seconds, as if it had lost its support, and fell on its back, completely losing its voice. Seeing that the enemy had been completely killed, Wayne shook off the blood on the silver sword, and then approached Gerald, extending a hand to lend support. "All right, Wayne. Let's head back to camp. The doctor there should be able to patch me up," Gerald said, offering a wry smile, not attempting to downplay his injuries. As a seasoned witcher, Gerald recognized the importance of preserving one's life over any commission. Even with his injuries, he felt the need to maintain a certain level of pride and faith. Wayne nodded, respecting Gerald's desire to maintain his independence despite the injuries. They started their journey back to the camp, with Wayne keeping a watchful eye on his surroundings, knowing that more challenges might lie ahead in the depths of the elven ruins. Chapter 29, The Gwent Card. Gerald, trembling as he walked alongside Wayne through the dark corridor, was immediately greeted by Toruville, the gatekeeper. Her solemn expression conveyed concern as her eyes scanned Wayne's body, and a sigh of relief escaped her when she observed that he bore no obvious injuries. Separated by the corridor, they didn't witness the events firsthand, but the echoes of bombs exploding and the frantic roars of numerous monsters could still be heard, creating a chaotic and unsettling atmosphere. The battle that took place there was obviously more intense than they had imagined. Upon seeing Toruville, Wayne left out the formalities and directly addressed the female elf leader, stating, "Toruville, Gerald has sustained minor injuries, please allow the camp doctor to treat him." He then gestured towards the two subordinates standing beside the female elf and added, "Furthermore, organize a group, take torches with you, and head to the location where I recently battled. Retrieve the corpses, the scent of blood is too strong there. If left unattended, monsters will likely gather once more." Toruville nodded when she heard the words, then turned to whisper a few words in Elvish to the elf marksman beside her. Facing Wayne again, she assured, "I've made the arrangements, Wayne. Let's proceed to the location." Upon hearing Toruville's words, Wayne wasted no time in exchanging further words. He promptly turned around, leading both her and the heavily armored dwarf warrior back through the corridor to return to the underground pond. This time, the trio didn't venture forward in darkness, instead, Toruville and the dwarf warrior held torches to illuminate the path, while Wayne, wielding a silver sword, took point to guard against any potential mishaps. When they passed through the arch and came to the terrace of the pond, both Toruville and the dwarf warrior couldn't help but gasp at the scene in front of them. On the semicircular terrace at the exit, it was covered by a large amount of blood and served limbs, with thick stench of blood in the air. Dozens of drowners' corpses lay densely scattered across the ground. Judging from the sword marks and flame marks on their bodies, it was obvious that they were all killed by Gerald and Wayne. Toruville, though briefly shocked, quickly regained her composure. Suppressing her emotions, she scrutinized Wayne more intently and posed a serious question. "Wayne, what are we going to do now?" Wayne still didn't relax his vigilance. Although the Fogler that attacked Gerald was beheaded by him, the area of this pond was not small, and he was not sure if there were other Foglers lurking in other places. Hearing Toruville's question, he thought about it for a dozen seconds and said "Retrieve the corpses of these monsters first. It's advisable to burn them, however, if you opt to bury them, ensure it's at a greater distance," Wayne instructed. "Otherwise, their bodies might attract subterranean corpse-eating creatures. In addition, get some more lighting tools. The other side of this arch bridge is connected to another area. You'd better arrange people to guard near the gate to prevent other monsters from rushing out from there. I want to check all the entrances and exits here, lest monsters will emerge from nowhere in the future." The female elf nodded, taking Wayne's instructions to heart, and was going to arrange for someone to finish it later. Speaking of which, Toruville was still a little bit lucky at this time. If it wasn't for the coincidence that she encountered Wayne and Gerald, maybe at some point, the monsters pouring out here would cause huge casualties. After about 10 minutes, the elven sharpshooter came in with a dozen soldiers. They were first surprised by the large number of monster corpses here, and then under the command of Toruville, they began to carry out the corpses one by one in an orderly manner. In this era, burning corpses had become a customary practice. In the Northern Kingdom, it was common knowledge that leaving corpses untreated or buried in the soil would soon attract malevolent spirits, ghouls, scavengers, and other corpse-eating creatures from the ground, posing a threat to the safety of the people. No one knows how many monsters live in the underground areas that humans cannot explore, and the light and burning flames can drive away those monsters to a certain extent. This circumstance might be one of the reasons for the widespread influence of the Church of Eternal Fire among ordinary people. However, considering that the smoke from the burning corpses might reveal their location, Toruel ultimately decided to have the corpses transported to the depths of the forest. This way, the monsters could return to nature without drawing attention. A dedicated group of individuals were busy performing their duties. It took less than half an hour for Wayne to fight, but 3 or 4 hours had passed after a group of them had dealt with the corpses and blood, searched the entire underground pond, and completely resolved the worries in this area. As the day's work came to an end, Wayne bid farewell and continued organizing affairs. Toruel, fatigued from the day's activities, returned to the camp intending to find Gerald. To her surprise, she saw this witcher sitting opposite a dwarf by the campfire, fiddling with something. They were also surrounded by several elves and dwarves. Wayne approached to get a closer look. Observing Gerald, he noticed the witcher was swathed in multiple layers of bandages and a thick black padded jacket. Despite this, Gerald was engrossed in examining a set of intricate cards in his hands, deliberating over which one to play. The dwarf opposite him also looked at Gerald nervously. The cards between the two were neatly arranged in 6 rows. 7 or 8 ducat gold coins were stacked together and placed in the center of the cards. It should be their bet. The enthralled onlookers eagerly watched the unfolding card game between Gerald and the dwarf, the excitement and anticipation palpable in the air. It was evident that this particular card game, Gwent, held great appeal for the spectators. Seeing this scene, Wayne has already guessed what they are doing. They were playing Gwent. He originally thought that this kind of game hadn't been born yet, or even if it had been born, it was just a self-entertainment among a few dwarves. The unexpected encounter with the widely circulated Gwent card game just after descending the mountain added a surprising twist to the day. It appeared to be Gerald's first exposure to Gwent, as Wayne reflected on their 2 years of companionship at Kaer Morhen, during which Gerald had never mentioned or discussed the game. Seeing that Gerald was still hesitating about how to play his cards, Wayne also came behind him curiously, wanting to see what set of cards White Wolf was holding. But just casually watching for a few seconds, Wayne, the experienced Gwent gambling king, has already thought of how to win. However, this was a bet between Gerald and the dwarf. Although he knew how to win, he would not interrupt their interest at such a time. Perhaps due to the lingering scent of the drowner's blood on him, Wayne was noticed by Gerald as he drew closer. However, the White Wolf, currently in high spirits, merely glanced over and, upon recognizing Wayne, offered a casual nod. Gerald promptly shifted his focus back to the ongoing gambling game, displaying an untroubled demeanor despite the interruption. Regrettably, in the Gwent card duel, success relies on a combination of skill, luck, and a robust deck, with personal will playing a minimal role. Despite Gerald's efforts and a few minutes of strategic struggle, his lack of experience and the dwarf's formidable Gwent cards led to his ultimate defeat. The ducats earned from Misha's entrustment were lost before Gerald had the chance to enjoy the spoils of victory. Chapter 30, is the main storyline finally about to start? Hey! White hair, do you want to continue playing? The dwarf who won the money had red hair and a huge rosy nose. He picked up the 7 or 8 ducats in the card and put them in his arms, and said to Gerald triumphantly, "This is a new entertainment method invented by our dwarves. You must have a smart brain and luck favored by the gods to win over others. If you're done playing, stand up and make way for others. My luck is on fire today, and I'm bound to rake in a heap of gold coins," declared the dwarf with a grin. Gerald, not uttering a word, displayed clear interest in this newfound amusement. He put away the set of Gwent cards temporarily lent to him by the dwarf, took out 5 ducats from his pocket, placed them on the table, and said in a hoarse voice, "I still have a few coins in my pocket. Whether you can take them or not depends on your ability." The dwarf laughed. "I like your character, Whitehair. My name is Holden." As he spoke, he took out 2 ducats from his pocket, threw them to a halfling next to him, and said boldly, "Peter, bring me and my new friend 2 cups of Vizima champions. Only by drinking and playing cards can we experience the real fun of Gwent cards." Wayne stood aside, amused to see Gerald make a new friend through Gwent. However, he had been busy in the underground pond for a long time just now, and he had to jump into the pond to look for the entrance where the monster might enter. Not only was his body covered in muddy water, even his underwear was stained with dirty blood, itching and uncomfortable. Realizing the necessity of a shower, he made his way back to his tent, retrieved a change of clothes, and exited the cave. By the river, Wayne began the task of scrubbing his body clean, determined to rid himself of the grime acquired during his investigative efforts. Despite the lingering cold of early spring in the north, Wayne's mutated body, a result of the grass trial mutation, made the experience of a cold bath bearable. Though not the most comfortable, it was certainly manageable. Upon returning to the camp post-shower, Wayne discovered that the dwarf named Horton had amassed a substantial stack of shiny ducats, totaling in the hundreds. As Wayne prepared to depart, he noticed a stark contrast in Geralt's demeanor. While Geralt appeared outwardly calm and composed, his eyes had reddened, and his once impassive face now struggled to conceal his emotions. The hand that clutched the Gwent cards trembled slightly, and he pursed his lips in evident sign that he had suffered significant losses in the game. Indeed, after another defeat, Geralt, displaying a hint of dejection, tossed his Gwent cards onto the ground. He controlled his emotions and conceded, "All right, Beard Horton, you've won, and I'm currently penniless. It must be the injuries on my body affecting my performance. No matter, let's have a rematch tomorrow." The dwarf, unfazed by Geralt's loss, cheerfully instructed the halfling named Pete to bring a large glass of Vizima champion for each of them. With a genial smile, he declared, "Feel free to challenge me anytime, Witcher. I'll have you know, in this camp, I'm the reigning champion of Gwent card prowess, ha ha ha." Geralt, rising to his feet, grimaced and patted his depleted purse in a gesture of mock pain. "Is it? That's really interesting." Rubbing his chest, Geralt turned around and spotted Wayne returning from the shower. With a casual tone, he addressed him, "Wayne, I'm going to lie down in the tent for a while. Don't rush into anything for the afternoon's action. We can discuss it later." Wayne nodded understandingly, giving Geralt a reassuring look before turning to walk slowly into the tent. The camp's doctor had assessed Geralt's injuries, determining that while they weren't severe, 2 ribs were cracked, and his internal organs had sustained a significant impact. For an ordinary person, recovery might require a month or 2 of rest. However, given the superhuman regenerative abilities of a witcher like Geralt, the doctors estimated that he would need only a week to return to normal. After Geralt left, Wayne looked at the fire camp where the dwarf was and found that without Geralt's participation, the other elves and dwarves who were watching did not choose to fight Horton for the Gwent card battle. I don't know if it's because of the lack of money, or because they are afraid of Horton's Gwent method. After a brief pause, Wayne took the initiative to approach Horton, who was immersed in his drink and packing up the Gwent cards. "Hey, Beard," he called out, "the game you just played looks quite interesting. Could you teach me how to play?" Holden raised his head, and upon seeing Wayne, he displayed no surprise. Pointing to the seat opposite, he remarked, "It's you, young witcher. I know you. You have a good relationship with our leader Toruvil, and you are also helping us in dealing with the monsters in the ruins," Holden acknowledged. "Do you want to play Gwent too?" "No problem, I will teach you. We young dwarves came out of the Mahakam Mountains. In addition to seeing the outside world, we want to pass the fun of Gwent cards to the whole world," Holden explained. Wayne maintained a courteous smile but chose not to speak. As a seasoned player who had collected all Gwent cards in the game, he hardly needed others to teach him Gwent skills. However, it was only 1,250, and Gwent cards had not yet become widely popular. Even Geralt, who was well informed about the gambling activities, had only engaged in the game for the first time today. Indeed, no one could have foreseen that the card game invented by the dwarves would evolve into a massively popular gambling phenomenon, captivating people worldwide. Perhaps it was the efforts of dwarves like Horton and his companions that contributed to its widespread appeal. Half an hour later, Horton, the bearded dwarf who had begun with a wide grin, no longer wore the same smile. The dynamics of the Gwent game had evidently shifted. Tugging at his red beard with a touch of regret, Horton experienced a turn of fortune. Over 100 ducats he had triumphantly amassed, combined with the more than 150 crowns he had saved, were now all in Wayne's possession. Not just currency, but even his cherished pipe, gemstone ring, and refined iron battle axe companions in decades of battles had become Wayne's acquisitions. Yet, in the spirit of a gambler, he maintained faith that this was only a temporary setback, and it wouldn't be long before he reclaimed his losses. It was beyond anyone's expectations that, just half an hour ago, the young witcher who claimed not to know how to play Gwent and lacked his own deck would emerge victorious in over a dozen consecutive games. He managed to defeat Horton, the strongest Gwent player in the camp, to the point where the dwarf almost lost his pants. Could this be the legendary act of pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger? At this moment, however, Wayne's attention was not on the aftermath of his victories. Following these consecutive wins against Horton, he was astonished to discover the emergence of a special skill within his professional skill. Gwent LV1, Luck +1. A simple notification, but the implication is very important. This skill didn't merely find its place among auxiliary skills, rather, it elevated to the status of a class skill for a witcher, much like swordsmanship, magic sign, and mutation level. The effect will enhance the luck attribute against supernatural forces, a revelation that left Wayne pleasantly surprised. Number. You can 5 to 10 chapters ahead on my Patreon page. patreon.com/lil674. Please support this translation project if possible. Chapter 31, Continuing the Cleanup. Obtaining another new ability filled Wayne with joy. Glancing at the bearded dwarf, Morhen, who unwittingly brought him this stroke of good luck, Wayne toyed with his refined iron battle axe a few times. With a smile, he remarked, "Morhen, though I fancy your axe and pipe, I don't smoke, and axes aren't my expertise. So, how about a deal?" Upon hearing this proposal, Morhen instinctively covered his empty purse and asked innocently, "What deal, Witcher?" "First off all, I don't have a penny to my name," Morhen stated matter of fact. "Cleaner than the ass of a dwarf on a horse. If you still want to continue playing cards, I'll have no choice but to pull out the gold tooth from my mouth and join you for another round." Hearing the dwarf's straightforward response, Wayne was momentarily taken aback. Placing Morhen's pipe, gemstone ring, and fine iron battle axe in front of the dwarf, he pushed them in his direction. In a persuasive tone, Wayne suggested, "I'm quite fond of Gwent, and I'm willing to assist you dwarves in popularizing the game. However, without my own deck, it's challenging for me to convey its enjoyment to others. How about this?" he proposed, "I'll return your belongings, and in return, you give me half of your Gwent cards. What do you think?" Upon hearing Wayne's proposition, Morhen immediately reflected a conflicted expression. The pipe, the axe, and the gemstone ring were cherished possessions that had been his companions for many years, making him understandably reluctant to part with them. On the other hand, the Gwent deck in his possession had been earned through considerable effort, each card acquired in hard-fought games against fellow dwarves. After deliberating for more than 10 seconds, the dwarf ultimately chose to retain his beloved belongings. After all, while cards could be won anew, the sentimental value attached to his possessions was irreplaceable. Morhen was quite straightforward. After making the deal with Wayne, he didn't resort to any tricks but instead directly handed over half of his Gwent cards. The collection comprised over 40 cards, including 2 relatively rare ones. During this era, Gwent cards were still in their early stage, with limited varieties and no distinct factions such as Nilfgaard, Skell-like, Scoia'tael, or Monster Camps. The game had not yet undergone the extensive development and categorization seen in later years. While the Gwent cards were still in their early stages with basic rules, the gameplay was relatively complete. The battles across the entire camp added unexpected fun, making it an enjoyable pastime. A few hours later, as Toruviel led a team to clean up the underground pond and organize guard assignments, she was astonished to discover the half-elf witcher, whom she held in high regard, engaging in bets across the camp with the small card gadgets that dwarves likes to play. Men, women, and children alike were drawn into this card game. The most exasperating thing is that this guy is highly skilled and very lucky. In just one afternoon, he managed to empty the pockets of numerous residents fond of gambling. He even secured victory to the point of winning some personal belongings from the gamblers, nearly stripping the pants off one unfortunate opponent. Toruviel couldn't help but feel a twinge of embarrassment. If she hadn't intervened in time, those disgruntled gamblers might have resorted to actions that would have caused even greater embarrassment for her. Wayne himself realized that he was getting carried away, but he couldn't be entirely blamed for it. He discovered that upgrading the Gwent card level and obtaining the luck attribute didn't require the prolonged and dedicated effort of mastering skills like swordsmanship and magic sign. Instead, proficiency increased only through wagering against others and winning. From his afternoon experiment, Wayne deduced that defeating an ordinary person who had no understanding of the game and merely made up numbers wouldn't lead to any improvement in the Gwent card level. However, if Wayne emerged victorious against a skilled Gwent player, he could gain 1 or 2 points of proficiency based on their expertise. Unfortunately, repeatedly winning money didn't contribute to proficiency growth like accumulating points did. It appeared that proficiency rewards could only be obtained by securing victories in the card game. Upon achieving his goal through these tests, Wayne scratched his head with a feigned apologetic expression. He turned to Toruviel with a sincere look and said, "I apologize, Toruviel, I just learned this new game, and I'm a little carried away. This game is very interesting, maybe you should also take time to learn it, it will exercise your thinking ability and make you sharper." As for these personal items, you can take them back and return them to your residence. Just let them know you purchased them from me, and they'll likely be even more appreciative. However, the female elf frowned slightly upon hearing Wayne's words. She then took out 100 ducats from the pocket on her belt, handed them to Wayne, and said, "Just do as you said, Wayne. But I won't take these things for nothing. You won them fair and square, you deserve them." Wayne shrugged indifferently at Torwell's actions. Moving away from the topic of Gwent cards, he talked directly about business. "Even though my companion Gerald is injured, I will continue to assist you in cleaning up this ruin. Of course, if I'm the sole person handling the cleanup, I'll have to be more meticulous, and it might take a bit longer." "I hope you don't mind," Wayne assured. Toruville, being quite sensible, recognized the need for a witcher after observing the morning battle situation. Without a witcher's assistance, accomplishing the cleanup with the elves and dwarves under her command would likely require significant sacrifices. As for the consumption of time, there is no need to worry. Since the lifespan of non-human races, in general, is longer, and time isn't as urgent a matter for them. The following day, Wayne restocked his supplies and resumed his work, spurred on by Gerald. To ensure Wayne's safety in battle, White Wolf even temporarily lent him his silver sword. This silver sword was adorned with countless inscriptions and had a special metal alloy incorporated into it. In comparison to ordinary steel swords, it was light, sharp, and exceptionally robust. It's said that Gerald considers this silver sword his most valuable piece of equipment, surpassing even his armor or mount. Before each battle, he carefully weighs his options and only opts for the silver sword when he's certain it's necessary. In ordinary circumstances, he's reluctant to take it out at all, keeping it well hidden. During battles, White Wolf is exceptionally cautious, ensuring the sword doesn't get chipped or damaged. The cost of repairing the sword is often higher than his task rewards. Reflecting on the expression in Gerald's eyes as if lending his wife to someone else when he lent the sword, Wayne wanted to laugh, but was also moved. Despite their relatively short time together, the Witchers of the Wolf School held strong values of love and righteousness. Though not bound by blood, their camaraderie surpassed that of brothers. In a harsh and unforgiving era, having a group of sincere and loyal companions was undeniably heartening. Chapter 32, Gargoyle. Crossing the arched stone bridge above the pond, Wayne found that the bridge was connected to another dark corridor adorned with various exquisite murals. A group of elves and dwarves, armed with weapons, stood guard on the terrace outside the corridor vigilantly, to guard against any monsters that attempt to surge from it and harm the residents. Upon noticing the fully armed Wayne approaching, the elves and dwarves respectfully nodded to the Witcher, demonstrating their admiration and respect. Different from those ordinary residents in the camp, as fighters, they can better understand the power of the Witcher. The vivid memory of the dozens of drowners that were slain the previous day lingered in their minds. To overcome such a sizable number of monsters would typically require a group of over 20 individuals. However, just 2 Witchers had managed to dispatch them nearly unscathed. Evaluating the wounds on those monsters, it was evident that each blow dealt by the Witchers was fatal, a level of proficiency beyond the reach of ordinary individuals. Faced with the attitude of the dwarves and elf warriors, Wayne smiled back, with a little pride in his heart. No one doesn't like the respect of others, especially demon hunters like them who risk their lives to get rid of monsters. Nevertheless, in this world, sensible individuals are scarce, outnumbered by muddled brutes. Upon entering the corridor, the surroundings remained shrouded in pitch darkness. However, aided by the cat potion, Wayne was able to clearly see things around him. It's logical to assume that this ruin, undisturbed for thousands of years, may have seen some deterioration in any traps that were set up back then. Wayne walked forward carefully with the sword in his hand, and soon passed through the corridor and came to a huge room similar to a banquet hall. The banquet hall is very large. Although there are no windows, the surrounding walls are carved with extremely exquisite marble reliefs, especially the ceiling here, which is a huge landscape composed of various weird sculptures. While the hall once likely housed exquisite furniture, the wooden pieces have succumbed to the ravages of time, reduced to dust. What remains are some metal objects, still bearing traces of their original form. He took a step forward and was about to continue exploring inside the banquet, but suddenly the medallion on his chest suddenly vibrated, even accompanied by an undetectable buzzing sound, just like a vibrating mobile phone. Startled by the medallion vibration, Wayne immediately stopped moving, clenched his sword tightly, and looked around carefully. This was the first time he encountered such a situation, but whether it was in the game or Vesemir's teaching, he knew exactly what he had encountered. As his medallion continued to vibrate, Wayne deduced that a sorceress must be nearby, or at the very least, there were traces of magic in the vicinity. With narrowed eyes, he treaded lightly, moving cautiously against the wall. He intended to reach the rear of the banquet hall and discover the origin of the magical trace. Acknowledging the skill of the ruins designer, Wayne considered the possibility that the creator was a magician or had enlisted the assistance of a highly skilled mage in the construction. As Wayne entered the range of the banquet hall's dance floor, the sound of cracking rocks echoed from the ceiling. Before Wayne could look up to discern the cause, a strong wind gale along with a boulder was released from above. In an instant, Wayne's hair stood on end, and without thinking, he rolled towards his side to evade the incoming attack. Boom! Caw caw caw! The thunderous crash of a colossal boulder plummeting from a great height sent tremors through Wayne's heart. He swiftly propped himself up with one hand, regaining his balance, and directed his gaze upward. There, standing at his previous location, was an unsightly monster resembling an obese goblin. The creature's entire body was composed of grey-blue stone, featuring an expressionless face, flickering fluorescent eyes, and a pair of malformed wings on its back. It bore no resemblance to any normal monster Wayne had encountered before. But with just one glance, Wayne recognized what it was. Gargoyle, a kind of stone statue which are extremely dangerous opponents. Edged out of granite or marble, they are able to withstand tremendous amounts of damage and exhibit superhuman strength. One blow dealt from their boulder-like fists will crush even a man clad in heavy armor. Not even those out of reach of a gargoyle's arms can feel safe, for they are able to throw hunks of stone with deadly precision. Dealing with them was quite challenging, as ordinary weapons would prove ineffective, only scraping the surface of the stone and potentially damaging the wielder's own blade. Fortunately, the witchers of the past had thoroughly studied this monster. The weaknesses of the gargoyle were recorded in detail in the books of Kaer Morhen that he had learned. In addition to targeting the fragile joints, these creatures were also vulnerable to the witcher's silver sword. Although the effect of cutting them with a silver sword is not as clean as cutting through flesh and blood, as long as enough damage accumulates, they can still be killed. In addition, this kind of monster is also afraid of anti-magic bombs. When they are covered by the dust of anti-magic bombs, they will lose control because the magical power in their bodies is blocked. Thinking of the records in the books, these monsters have thick skin and infinite strength, their movements are quite slow, and they are not invincible enemies. Wayne exhaled lightly, picked up the silver sword that Gerald had lent him, placed a strengthened version of the Quen shield on himself, and then laid a huge Yrden magic trap on the ground anticipating the gargoyle's attack. The gargoyle that fell to the ground stood there dumbfounded. It seems that, due to not being activated for thousands of years, the internal program of the gargoyle appeared slow or hindered. It stood there for more than 10 seconds, until Wayne almost couldn't bear it and took the lead in attacking. This huge fat guy wobbled towards Wayne. As Wayne engaged in combat, he discovered that this stone monster was not as difficult to deal with as he imagined. Because the reaction speed of this gargoyle is too slow. With his own abilities and system enhancements, Wayne's swordsmanship is comparable to that of a cat school assassin master. He can easily roll over and jump behind the gargoyle to avoid the monster's powerful attack. Often when the gargoyle turns around to face Wayne with difficulty, its back joints have already been attacked several times. As the two faced each other, Wayne skillfully executed several acrobatic rolls to evade the gargoyle's slaps and tramples. After successfully dodging the attacks, he swiftly circled around the gargoyle's back to exploit its vulnerable points. On the 7th attempt, Wayne used his silver sword to slash continuously at the gargoyle's back joints. Unable to withstand the onslaught, the colossal gargoyle finally succumbed. Its limbs, neck, and torso, resembling a structure of building blocks, were reduced to scattered parts strewn across the ground. Among the shattered remnants of the gargoyle, a fist-sized, red and green crystal-like object caught Wayne's attention. It was the heart of the gargoyle, a magic item that served as the power source for the stone statue. While not incredibly valuable, the heart of the gargoyle could fetch a decent price if traded with scholars or mages interested in magical artifacts. It could provide enough funds for ordinary people to sustain themselves for several months. Wayne picked up the crystal with a thoughtful expression, considering its potential value in future transactions. Chapter 33, Circle of Elements 2. After slaying the gargoyle, Wayne did not stay, nor did he choose to return to the camp, but continued to explore the inside of the banquet hall. And as he explored, Wayne discovered that this underground ruins was probably a palace of the royal family of the elves in the past. In addition to the exquisite and luxurious statues and murals here, another reason is that it is impossible for ordinary elf nobles or other figures to own such a huge palace. Perhaps only those royal family members who rule the elves have such authority. It is a pity that although the elves have a long history, they can be traced back to the period when the white ship landed by Pontar and Yeroga thousands of years ago. But with the cruel war between them and human beings, many things have long been lost in records and cannot be investigated, and countless unknown secrets have long been hidden in the dust of history. I am afraid that apart from those old antiques who survived from the white ship era, no one knows exactly what happened here. Wayne, being a witcher, wasn't particularly concerned with unraveling the historical mysteries of the ruins. His primary focus was the sheer scale of the underground complex, filled with numerous chambers, rooms, and guarded by gargoyles. Moreover, the presence of various underground monsters in every nook and cranny added to the complexity and danger of the situation. And in this dark environment, not only did he have to be vigilant at all times to prevent the monsters who might sneak up on him at any time, but he also had to explore the correct route in this complicated environment, which was time-consuming and labor-intensive, which was quite troublesome. This also led to the whole second day. He only explored one banquet hall and several rooms next to the banquet hall and had no time to explore other areas. As for the results of the exploration, in addition to killing the 3 gargoyle guards, they also killed more than a dozen archie-spore monsters, blocking the passage. When he dragged his exhausted body back to the camp, Toruvil immediately greeted him. Wayne didn't hide anything and told the elf leader about his work progress and related speculations. After discussing the exploration plan with Toruvil and chatting with her, Wayne returned to his tent for some much-needed rest. Over the next days his life took on an unusually busy routine. Each day was filled with gathering and refining medicine, engaging in battles, collecting spoils, resting in camp, having lunch, and then resuming exploration in the afternoon. This left him with little time for other activities. In addition, of course, he has not forgotten the quest system where he can gain EXP for daily activities. Every time before exploring the ruins, he will receive a normal level combat quest from Geralt, gaining a few experience points and a normal level treasure chest for free. In contrast to his typically hectic daily life, Geralt was leading a rather luxurious lifestyle at this time. After sustaining injuries to his chest and ribs, Geralt was confined to the camp for recovery. However, being a free spirit, he found it challenging to take time off even during his healing period. Instead, he swiftly developed a thing for the Gwent card game. Not only did he audaciously borrow decks and a substantial sum of ducats, but he also formed a connection with a half-elf widow, indulging in enjoyable evenings throughout his recovery. On the contrary, Wayne, in his pursuit of strength, not only commits to completing a task daily but also dedicates time to relentless skill development without any breaks. He diligently hones his abilities, constantly pushing himself. Nonetheless, the underground ruins have finite challenges. As the 7th day arrived, Wayne's continuous fighting and cleaning, this expert-level commission finally came to an end. Within the entirety of the underground ruins, there is only one last area left unexplored. As Wayne readied himself and defeated the 2 gargoyle guards protecting the area, his attention was drawn to a massive metal gate crafted from an unidentified material. The black metal gate had become adorned with cobwebs and dust. Nevertheless, Wayne could distinctly sense that the gate was not only exceptionally robust but also remarkably sturdy. Even after the passage of time, there was no discernible trace of rust, indicating its extraordinary durability. After confirming that there were no other enemies around, Wayne cautiously approached the metal gate with caution. But when he was less than half a meter away from the metal gate, the medallion hanging on his chest unexpectedly started to vibrate again. An unfamiliar magical energy flowed through the door towards him. Simultaneously, the system's emotionless voice echoed in his ears once more. Ding! A high-concentration magic energy node is detected. 3 ability points can be obtained by absorbing it. Note that opting to absorb this energy node will result in its permanent destruction, causing the spatial structure to collapse and forming a dimensional crack. Please choose carefully. Upon hearing the system's warning, Wayne quickly grasped that behind the imposing metal door lay the circle of elements he had long sought after. This time, he pondered for only a few seconds before swiftly arriving at a decision. He explored here alone, without any witnesses around, including himself, and no one could predict what he would encounter in the ruins. Isn't this the good opportunity God gave him? Thinking of this, Wayne no longer hesitated and immediately chose to confirm. In an instant, the magical energy on the opposite side of the metal gate, compelled by an unknown power, rushed toward him like a tidal wave. In response, his body, defying the logic of mages, rapidly drew in all the magic power enveloping him, like a whale voraciously ingesting its surroundings. That terrifying speed even formed a huge mana vortex around Wayne. However, this phenomenon was fleeting. Approximately 5 minutes later, Wayne sensed that his body had regained control. The invisible magical power had disappeared, and his body seemed to have been nourished by the fountain of life. Whether it was fatigue, injury, or mental exhaustion, everything had disappeared. It resembled certain game settings, where everything reverted to the most optimal state. Most significantly, in his attribute column, the ability points had surged from the Chapter 34, Departure. In the afternoon Wayne had returned to the camp. Toruville, who had been waiting for him for a while, approached Wayne and inquired about the exploration. Have you finished exploring the ruins? Yes, except for the last building locked by the metal gate, I have checked all the other areas. There will be no more monsters emerging from the ground to attack you. Regarding that building, I suspect that it to be a treasure vault. There seems to be a deactivated magic node inside, which does not pose a threat for the time being. But that door is too strong. I tried many methods, but I couldn't able to open it. Maybe it is due to the passage of time that caused damage to the internal lock mechanism of the door. Things are indeed as Wayne described. The gate of the treasure vault was indeed formidable, fortified by magic, rendering it impervious to the attempts of any individuals to pry it open. Even if there were issues inside, it seemed that they would remain confined within the treasure vault. Hearing Wayne's explanation, Toruville nodded in amazement. She was silent for a few seconds, and then said, "Thank you, Wayne, you did us a great favor. Could you please wait a moment here? I'll bring someone to conduct one more patrol of the ruins. If, indeed, the last structure proves to be unopenable, we'll consider this commission officially completed," Toruville declared. Having uttered these words, Toruville lifted her head, meeting Wayne's gaze directly, and inquired, "What's your next step? Where do you intend to go? Are you planning to remain in the Kaedwen kingdom?" Wayne contemplated for a moment and felt that there was nothing worth hiding. He shrugged and replied, "I'm not sure, Toruville. Gerald's injuries are nearly healed. Our plan is to depart from the Kaedwen kingdom at the earliest opportunity. As you're aware, the locals here aren't particularly welcoming toward non-human races and witchers. So we intend to follow the Pontal River, making our way to the kingdom of Temeria initially. From there, we'll assess our options and take on commissions as they come." Upon hearing Wayne's words, Toruville let out a sigh. After a moment of hesitation, she reached out and gently touched Wayne's face. Through their time together, she had come to recognize the considerable potential within the half-elf standing before her, an individual surpassing many of her own kind in terms of wisdom and insight. For a long-lived race, achieving mastery in swordsmanship during one's teenage years was something to be proud of. Furthermore, the Witcher not only possessed exceptional swordsmanship and a physique surpassing that of ordinary individuals but also wielded magic spells, elevating him beyond ordinary sword masters. In Toruville's view, he fits the definition of a strong man, far better than the frail sorceress. She found the companionship with Wayne quite enjoyable and couldn't resist posing another question. "Are you really not considering staying here, Wayne? If it were you, you would definitely be able to bring more hope to our elves, and I need your help too." Hearing this, Wayne looked into the eyes of the female elf, shaking his head slightly without uttering a word. Toruville withdrew her hand with a hint of helplessness and remarked, "Well then, Wayne, you have your own path, and I won't pressure you. The reward for this commission should be settled as per our pre-arranged agreement, ducats or a quarter of the loot from the ruins," Toruville explained. "If you opt for the former, I can provide it to you right away. However, if you choose the latter, the value is likely to be higher. Yet, processing those spoils will take time, and we won't have an exact value until then. Consequently, your reward will be delayed for a while. If you have faith in me, I'll ensure the funds are sent your way once the processing is complete." Wayne nodded. It wasn't that Toruville was playing any tricks. He had personally explored the entire ruins, and he knew exactly what trophies were there. Time is the most powerful weapon. Countless powerful warriors, sorceress, or kings have all turned into dust in front of it. Perhaps this ruin was invaluable thousands of years ago and possessed countless amount of wealth, but now, except for some precious metals that are difficult to be corroded and oxidized, everything else no longer exists and has become waste. And it will definitely take a certain amount of time to transform the relics into wealth that can be used. Wayne waved his hand and said to Toruville, "Don't bother yourself, Toruville, I will opt for ducats. By the way, there's one more thing. I wonder if I could trouble you with." Upon hearing Wayne's request, Toruvil didn't decline and responded with a slightly serious expression, "What is it? If it's feasible, I won't refuse." Wayne waved his hand, signaling the female elf not to take it too seriously, and said with a smile, "It's just a small thing, no need to be tense. I was thinking, do you happen to know any elf sorceress? The loot here holds significant historical value. Perhaps you can sell it to them and secure a better price. And if you're acquainted with them, you could also assist me in selling those gargoyle hearts to them. I remember that these items are highly coveted within the mage community." The female elf hesitated for a few seconds upon hearing these words. She had initially pledged to the Lord not to disclose the information casually, but due to her trust in Wayne, she eventually spoke up, "I can try to help, Wayne. I know a lady who is a powerful sorceress. The reason why I and other residents can stay in this ruins is because of her help. If that lady is interested, I will sell your gargoyle heart to her, and I will find a way to get the money transferred to you." "No, no, you don't need to find someone to deliver it," Wayne quickly waved his hand. "We witchers need to accept commissions everywhere, and I don't even know which country I will go to stay in." After a brief pause, he continued, "Before this winter, I will return to Kaedwen. If you are still here at that time, then transfer the money to me." After successfully concluding the expert-level commission, Wayne found himself in high spirits. Gerald's injuries had largely healed, and he was able to carry out his activities freely. According to the agreement before departure, Wayne generously divided the 750 ducats reward, providing 375 ducats each. This gesture aimed to foster a closer bond with the White Wolf. The sum was substantial, sufficient to sustain both of them for an entire year if used solely for sustenance. Instead of hastily leaving after completing the commission, Wayne opted to stay in the camp for an additional 2 days. After ensuring the safety of the ruins, he bid a solemn farewell to the first friend he made, Toruvil. The system also provided an explanation about the dimensional crack left by him at the Circle of Elements. If this world were a living being, then this dimensional rift can only be considered an insignificant, minor wound, barely a scratch on the skin. Unless someone utilizes rituals or magic to manipulate it, it is impossible for a powerful being from another world to traverse into this realm through such a minor breach. During these 2 days, Wayne was not idle. He tended to his black mare, whom he named Lucifer, and sought out the female elf again, seeking her guidance. Toruvil enthusiastically agreed to Wayne's request, and the two of them, along with Lucifer, ventured into the forest to practice riding. Before bidding their farewells, he gained a foundational understanding of riding and acquired a complementary skill named Riding. Riding LV1, compatibility with the mount +1. On the day of their actual departure, Wayne and Gerald, each atop their respective mounts and laden with their belongings, stood at the cave's exit. They bid farewell to Toruvil and the acquaintances they had made in the camp during their stay. Before their departure, Toruvil forward to embrace Wayne, leaving a gentle parting kiss on his cheek, and presented him with a meticulously crafted gift. It was an exquisite longbow made from a special wood, with a total length of nearly 80 centimeters when the upper and lower ends were combined. Elvish inscriptions adorned the bow's body, and the bowstring, made from the leather of an unknown species, proved remarkably resilient. This gift had been specially prepared for Wayne after knowing his interest in learning archery. Simultaneously, bows and arrows stood as the most potent weapons for the current elves. Perhaps, there lay a concealed hope in Toruvil's gesture that Wayne would not forget his heritage and would lend assistance to more elves in the future. After exchanging warm farewells, the two witchers, Wayne and Gerald, carried their generous rewards and gifts from their newfound friends. With the watchful eyes of everyone upon them, they disappeared into the depths of the forest. Chapter 35, Pontar River. The Pontar River, also known as Avion y Ponte al Gwen Allen, by the elves, which means the River of Alabaster Bridges, and it is one of the largest rivers in the north. Like the Yaroga to the south, they both rise from the Blue Mountains and flow from east to west throughout the northern kingdoms, emptying into the sea near Oxenford and Novigrad. The Ponta River flows through the 4 countries and serves as the northern border of the southern states Temeria and Edirne, and the southern border of Redania and Kaedwen. The region where these 4 countries meet is called the Pontar Valley, or simply Pontal. Simultaneously, this river stands as the most prosperous canal in the northern kingdom. Numerous scholars argue that a country that can gain complete control of the Pontar River could become the wealthiest in the entire north solely by relying on trade taxes along the river. Consequently, the struggle for control of this vital waterway is a near-daily task among the northern kings of various dynasties. Disputes and, at times, even bloody conflicts over ownership of the Pontar River occur every few years. Having departed from the non-human race stronghold, Wayne and Gerald journeyed southward, accepting commissions and exploring the lands simultaneously. With funds at their disposal, they faced no concerns about food and accommodation and lived comfortably. In order to travel smoothly, the duo intentionally avoided large human towns prone to trouble. Instead, they focused on commissions and procured supplies from small villages around towns, aiming to minimize conflicts with the Kaedwenians. However, even though they were so careful, the two of them were attacked and cheated several times by the savage Kaedwenian thugs. However, it is impossible for these hooligans with dung forks and wooden sticks to cause any harm to the two master swordsmen who can use magic. But after each battle, they must leave the scene of the incident as soon as possible to prevent being entangled by the soldiers who came and causing a bigger dispute. This kind of encounter is undoubtedly very annoying. Therefore, neither Wayne nor Gerald wanted to stay in Kaedwen Kingdom any longer. They rode to a port town near the bank of the Pontar River, found a merchant ship bound for Novigrad, and planned to take the ship directly to the floating port town of Temeria. Fortunately, after being turned down by some apparently biased merchants, they found a captain willing to take them on board. This is a huge merchant ship. The captain is a Skellig named Weskier. He has a strong figure like a bear, a bald head, and a rough appearance, but his eyes are bright and energetic. He is not the kind of simple-minded warrior. What impressed people the most was the thick weed-like black beard on his chin, just like his nickname Blackbeard, with distinctive features. Upon Gerald and Wayne's request to board his merchant ship, Weskier took only a dozen seconds to consider before agreeing. However, he laid out some conditions for their passage. In addition to aiding the crew in protecting the ship during potential battles, he requested Gerald and Wayne to pay 150 ducats each for the boat tickets. Acknowledging the need to accommodate 2 individuals and 2 horses, providing sufficient food and fodder, as well as securing a reasonably sized room, Weskier considered this price to be quite generous. While chatting with the man, the two finally found out why Captain Weskier of Skellig treated them so favorably. Taking a bold swig from a large glass of dwarf beer, Weskier, with a black beard, casually wiped away the spilled beverage on his beard and spoke in his rough voice. "I know that there are many idiots and farmers on the continent. They hate witchers very much. They think they are thieves and freaks. They even shamelessly blame them for the disappearance of many children. But in our Skellig Islands, witchers are very respected figures. They were all valiant warriors, fearless fighters who had vanquished many mighty monsters and rescued countless Icelanders. Their tales have been immortalized in numerous poems," Weskier mused with blurred eyes. He absent-mindedly touched his beard and continued with a sigh. "When I was a teenager, I once encountered a master demon hunter. My family and I were fishing in the sea, and we fell under attack by a group of harpy birds. Monsters took the lives of my brother and father. To protect my mother, I had no option but to flee for my life. When we were desperately fleeing for our lives, it was that master who aided me and my mother, ensuring our survival. That witcher bore a medallion resembling a griffin on his chest. I don't know his name, but after killing the monsters, he departed silently without uttering a word to us or seeking payment. But I know that he is a good man. Compared with those hypocritical and despicable noble knights, he is the real chivalrous man." After listening to the bearded Weskier, Gerald had no expression on his face, but Wayne could see his complicated mood from his eyes. In this world, many may misunderstand the impression of witchers and harbor malicious intentions. However, those who have been aided by witchers will, at the very least, remember the kindness bestowed upon them. Just like Martha, whom they helped not long ago, this old woman will surely remember who, for a meager fee, helped her find her 2 sons and continue the fate of their family. The journey along the Pontar River proved remarkably smooth. Aside from some unsightly water spirits persistently trailing the ship with intentions to attack the bottom deck, they encountered no other threats. They sailed westward along the river, passing through the 2 large towns of Virgin and Hagi Fortress, and finally arrived at the port of floating harbour town belonging to Temeria on the afternoon of the 8th day. During these days on board, an interesting thing happened. Wayne and Gerald, who were severe patients of the Gwent brand, accidentally discovered that Captain Blackbeard, along with many sailors on this ship, were Gwent brand fans. According to Weskier, this interesting gambling method is already well known in the free city of Novigrad. The dwarf bankers in Novigrad were diligently promoting the Gwent card, aiming to replace traditional dice gambling with this new form of entertainment. They even invested money in organizing several small Gwent card games. The crew members, accustomed to traveling far and wide, proved more receptive to new experiences than those who stayed in one place. The allure of such intriguing games provided them with an enjoyable means to pass the time. The bearded Weskier confidently patted his chest, asserting that even in Novigrad, he was a well-known Gwent master and unafraid of any challenge. Unfortunately for him, they encountered a demon hunter this time around, one blessed with luck and a high level of proficiency in the game of Gwent. In just one night, Wayne effortlessly utilized the Gwent cards in his possession to reclaim the boat ticket money for himself and Gerald. He even pocketed gold coins and acquired a few rare cards. If it weren't for the fact that Wayne didn't want the good man with the beard to lose his pants, he would be merciful. He might have continued the gambling for a few more days, ultimately claiming the merchant ship as his own. And Gerald, who also lost more than 200 ducats to Wayne, even made an oath publicly to never to play against this lucky junior again without collecting a strong enough deck. In response to this, Wayne simply shrugged his shoulders. After winning against numerous opponents in succession, his Gwent card level had ascended by 2 levels, and he received 2 strokes of luck as a result. In the long life that lay ahead, Wayne's Gwent card skills were destined to improve, his luck to strengthen, and the cards he collected to become increasingly powerful. It was estimated that unless he willingly conceded, Gerald would never be able to defeat him at the gambling table. Chapter 36, Floating Harbor. Floating Harbor is a port town in the Kingdom of Temeria, located in the Pontar Valley, built along the upper reaches of the Pontar River, surrounded by impassable bushes and forests. This is an important trade toll station in Temeria. There is an army stationed there all year round. Any ship going here needs to pay a trade tax. A large number of merchant ships dock here to buy supplies, which also makes this remote town near the border contributes to the peculiar prosperity of this remote town near the border between Temeria and Kaedwen. Wayne and Gerald disembarked at the port of this small town. After bidding farewell to the generous bearded Captain Weskier of Skellig, they entered the trading town. There are not many residents in the town, only a few hundred or so in total. There are quite a few members of the elves and dwarves. Observing their words and actions, it appeared that the non-human races in this town have not suffered too much unfair treatment. At least you can see smiles on their faces. The streets were filled with pedestrians, showcasing a diverse mix of gorgeously dressed businessmen, tourists, and sailors with rough skin and coarse behavior. Along the street, numerous shops lined the way, ranging from blacksmiths to bookstores and clothing stores. Despite the town's relatively small size, it seemed to encompass a variety of essential establishments. Apparently, it was the great trade on the Ponta River that brought life to this remote town. Upon entering the town, Gerald, the seasoned adventurer, couldn't resist the allure of what appeared to be the largest tavern in the vicinity. It was a 3-story tavern. It looked a bit dilapidated on the outside, but the overall decoration was quite gorgeous. It was obvious that his boss had put a lot of thought into it. Outside the tavern, several young women, scantily clad, leaned against the door frame and windows, enticing passers-by with seductive glances. It was evident to any man what kind of establishment it was. Gerald was tickled by the eyes of those girls. He nudged Wayne with his elbow, showed a slightly sullen smile. "Wayne, let's head to that inn for some rest. We'll wait a couple of days before heading to Vizima. After staying on Weskier's boat for so long, my body is numb, and the only food we had on that ship is soup and little water. It's time to have a good meal." Wayne shot Gerald a contemptuous look. "Where do you plan on finding good food?" Of course, he knew exactly what this guy wanted to do, but they were companions, so they had to accommodate each other and not interfere too much with each other's actions, so he nodded and said, "All right, let's take a break here for 2 days. Also, check if there are any commissions we can fulfill in the area." As the first trading town they had come across, Wayne was eager to explore the local tavern to see if he could find a few Gwent masters, further honing his skills and gaining experience. He didn't rush into the tavern but strolled toward the women leaning outside, effortlessly striking up a conversation. In no time, he had charmed 2 young girls, with his arms around the girls' waists, with an indescribably happy expression on his face. With money in their pockets, they spared no expense, opting for the 2 best rooms. Leaving Wayne with a knowing smile, Gerald couldn't wait to escort the 2 women upstairs to the 2nd floor. Wayne looked at the white wolf's back with contempt and snorted disdainfully. As witchers, their bodies underwent mutations, resulting in a metabolic rate dozens of times faster than that of ordinary people. This alteration not only bestowed upon them superior drug resistance and recovery speeds but also heightened hormone levels several times over those of regular individuals. This has also led to the fact that witchers have been in a state of emotional depression all year round, and need to vent their desires frequently. Many witchers have weird personalities, even a little crazy, and this is also because of this reason. And the robust physique and heightened energy make witchers always inseparable from women. It is precisely because of this that many female sorcerers like to find a witcher as a bed partner. Following his parting from Gerald, Wayne didn't immediately enter his room. He held no interest in the mundane allurements of the tavern. Instead, he purchased a bottle of top-tier cherry mead from the bartender, selected a clean seat, and attentively observed the surroundings. The tavern's hall was quite spacious. Being the sole large tavern in the floating port, it boasted a considerable number of guests dining at this hour. Merchants, sailors, captains, tourists, and local residents, altogether around 50 people, occupied tables in groups of 2s and 3s. Laughter, banter, boasting, drinking, and occasional brawls filled the air, creating a lively and vibrant atmosphere. After about 3 minutes of observation, Wayne found his target, a portly businessman adorned in a silk robe and a small, round fur hat perched atop his head. His facial features were densely packed together, rendering him unattractive, yet the friendly smile on the corner of his mouth seemed amiable. However, this was not something Wayne cared about. The reason why he noticed him was because Wayne had clearly seen that an exquisite leather bag containing the Gwent brand was hanging on the belt around his waist, shaking slightly. The businessman was apparently also a fan of Gwent. Wayne walked up to him with the wine bottle, exchanged glances with the fat businessman, and then generously took out his Gwent card, put it on the table in front of the businessman, with a kind smile on his mouth, and asked, "Sir, wouldn't it be too boring to drink alone? How about a game of Gwent to liven things up a bit?" The fat businessman signaled his 2 bodyguards to halt when Wayne approached. He scrutinized Wayne from head to toe with shrewd eyes, eventually focusing on his amber cat-like pupils for a few seconds before breaking into a signature business smile. His voice, a tad high-pitched, remarked, "A witcher who also plays Gwent. What reason do I have to decline? My name is Dalanki Rivarden, a businessman from the south. Nice to meet you, witcher." Wayne didn't talk nonsense, and sat directly opposite the fat businessman, took out 10 ducats from his pocket as a bet, placed them in the middle of the table, and said, "You can call me Wayne, Mr. Rivarden. I'm just a Gwent novice, and my hand only holds fairly common cards. Please be gentle, and don't let me suffer too embarrassingly." Upon hearing this, the fat businessman nodded kindly, the smile at the corner of his mouth involuntarily widening. He chuckled and spoke in a warm yet polite tone. "That's a simple request, Mr. Wayne. I'm also quite new to this game. We can chat while playing. I'm very interested in what kind of adventures that you have experienced as a witcher." Chapter 37, Gwent Gambit. When Gerald came down from the second floor feeling refreshed, he noticed a peculiar atmosphere enveloping the entire tavern. A group of people had gathered around a table, observing something in hushed silence. Their undivided attention was fixed on whatever was transpiring, creating a marked contrast to the usual lively commotion. Even those not directly engaged in watching couldn't help but cast occasional glances toward the table, clearly intrigued by the spectacle. Gerald was a little curious and wanted to step forward to see what happened. Suddenly, exclamations erupted from the onlooking drinkers, and a somewhat hearty voice broke into laughter. Soon after, it shifted to a sigh, accompanied by these words. "That was quite the splendid game, Mr. Wayne. The deck I meticulously assembled after investing a considerable sum actually lost to your common cards that can be found anywhere. For me, it was a valuable competition. It taught me to be humble, cautious, and not to underestimate anyone. As per our bets, these 300 orens are yours." Hearing such a conversation, Gerald probably guessed what had happened. Sure enough, as the drinkers around marveled at the gambling spectacle, he approached the table, taking a few steps closer. There, he observed Wayne seated across from a businessman, with a smile on his face, and said humbly in his tone, "Thank you for your bet, Mr. Levarden. You are an honest businessman, and this is a virtue to be admired. However, according to the rules of the Gwent card game, as the winner, I should be able to draw a card from your deck as my reward, isn't it? Will you maintain this tradition?" Hearing this request, Rivarden twitched his lips with some heartache. As a businessman who came here from the southern Nilfgaard kingdom, he understands the importance of the spirit of contract, and will not tarnish his reputation because of a little thing. So he squeezed out a smile and said loudly, "Of course, Mr. Wayne, you won the game, and I will honor our agreement. Feel free to choose any card from my deck as your reward." Then, As he spoke, he piled up his Gwent cards and handed them to Wayne, signaling him to draw a card at random. Wayne was not too polite, and he took out the special hero card he had been eyeing for a long time and then looked at the pained Levarden, and praised. "Thank you for your generosity, Mr. Levarden. This card will definitely be put to good use in my future games. I appreciate the match, and I'm glad we could share this moment of excitement and camaraderie over Gwent. It's still early, why don't we enjoy dinner together and play a few more rounds afterward? How does that sound?" The corner of Revarden's mouth twitched. In the previous game, he had already witnessed Wayne's Gwent card skills and luck. He felt that he must not continue to bet against him until he had enough confidence. As a businessman, engaging in business destined to lose money was something he could not afford to do. The fat businessman shook his head, pretending to be distressed, and said half-truthfully, "Sorry, Mr. Wayne. In 2 days, I will be transporting a large amount of goods to Vizima City. Tomorrow will be very busy. Please allow me to leave now. I must regain my energy and cope with tomorrow's work." Wayne nodded, pretending to regret. He knew it was just an excuse, but he didn't force Revarden. He took out a dozen or so of the orans he won, threw them into the hands of the bartender, and then shouted loudly to the surrounding drinkers, "I'm lucky today, I'm very happy. I'm going to invite everyone in the tavern to have a drink and share my luck. But you don't have to thank me, you should thank the generous Mr. Revarden." Excited cheers filled the air as the news of free drinks spread through the tavern. Some of them offered compliments to both Levarden and Wayne. The genuine praise managed to ease the stiffness in the fat businessman's expression. Wayne glanced at the sky and noticed that it was still early, with the sun yet to set. Despite winning 2 out of 3 games in the bet against Levarden, he acknowledged that losing 1 game was challenging given his luck and skills. Nevertheless, reaching a Gwent card proficiency level of 5 points brought him great satisfaction. With many Gwent players still in the tavern, Wayne viewed them as valuable sources of experience points that could help him further enhance his Gwent card skills. There was no way he would let such an opportunity slip away. "Everyone, I haven't fully enjoyed the gamble just now, and now I want to play a small game with everyone. Tonight, any friend who knows how to play Gwent can pay an oran as a registration fee and play a game with me. Whoever wins can take 100 oran directly, and until the 300 are won, everyone has 3 chances. Of course, the loser will follow the rules and I will draw a Gwent card as a trophy." He shot a glance at those who seemed unimpressed by the announcement, adopting a slightly indignant tone as he continued. "Spread the word to everyone in the floating port. I plan to stay here for 2 days. The challenge will be open until the moment I depart from the floating port. In the banks of Tamaria, 1 oran can be exchanged for 100 copper coins, and it only takes a dozen copper coins to buy a family's daily bread." The temptation of 300 oran directly attracted everyone in the town who knew how to play Gwent cards. As the news released by Wayne continued to spread, whether it was the people watching with excitement or those who wanted to use an oran to make a big difference, they all gathered in the largest tavern. After hearing the news, the mayor who was in charge of managing the floating port immediately wanted to end the gamble directly, but after seeing the enthusiasm of the participants with his own eyes, he glanced at the instigator angrily, and finally gave up on this tough method that could easily cause riots. Instead, he chose to place more than a dozen soldiers from the barracks to maintain order in the tavern. The atmosphere in the tavern was very lively, with a steady stream of challengers and undiminished enthusiasm from the onlookers. The game went on for 4 hours unknowingly. Standing next to Wayne, Gerald maintained a serious expression, cradling his steel sword and scabbard. His tall stature, white hair, and sharp eyes gave off an air of intimidation. Observing Wayne's victories over challengers and the growing excitement in the crowd, along with the accumulating oran gold coins on the table, Gerald couldn't resist whispering to Wayne. "Wayne, you're attracting too much attention today. Winning this much money will surely draw some unwanted eyes. We don't want trouble with the authorities or draw the ire of local gamblers." Wayne raised his head and glanced at Gerald upon hearing the words. He knew that White Wolf's advice was true. Revealing such a substantial amount of money in front of everyone could undoubtedly attract unwanted attention. However, within these 4 hours, he managed to defeat over 40 Gwent players. His Gwent level has increased from 2 to 3, and his luck value had seen a slight increase. The rapid progress excited him, and the unexpected high-stakes gamble also presented Wayne with a golden opportunity to swiftly increase his Gwent card level. How could he possibly let go of such a chance? He nodded reassuringly to Gerald, then checked the time. It was almost midnight. Wayne stood up and addressed the surrounding crowd and other contestants who still wanted to compete. Everyone, it's getting late now. I'm truly moved by everyone's enthusiasm. As he spoke, he casually pushed out 70 or 80 oren from the coins on the table and said to a squad leader and the tavern owner who had been standing by the side all the time. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Since everyone thinks highly of me, I'll be a generous host. Tonight, everyone present here can eat and drink as they please. There's no limit to the supply of beer and barbecue, and the expenses will be deducted from this money. After a good rest tomorrow, we'll continue our gambling game after lunch. Chapter 38, Jaskier. Wayne's generous gesture immediately drew cheers from the onlookers. Despite having no direct stake in the substantial bonus on the table, the common folk were delighted in receiving a free feast of wine and meat, along with the spectacle of an exciting gambling game. For people in the Middle Ages with limited entertainment options, this was akin to a grand celebration. As for those with malicious intentions, witnessing Wayne generously allocate a quarter of the coins from the table to entertain the crowd significantly diminished the jealousy and greed in their hearts. The following day, Wayne awoke in the finest room the tavern had to offer. Upon descending to the first floor lobby, it was nearly noon. As he looked around to check if Gerald was present, a voice, that was a little funny but also clear and melodious, like singing poetry, broke into his ears. Gerald, is this the youngest witcher of your school, Mr. Wayne? Wow, blonde hair, a handsome elf boy, a Gwent master, and a witcher. In just one night, he was the talk of the town. Everyone was talking about his generosity, his good luck, and his unparalleled Gwent skills. Such an excellent person, I'm going to put his name into my poetry, it's going to be fascinating. By the way, he doesn't have a nickname yet. I also want to think of a resounding nickname for him, just like the nickname White Wolf. In the future, this will definitely become a legendary title, resounding throughout the Northern Kingdom. Hearing the lively voice, Wayne instinctively turned toward the source and locked eyes with a young man dressed in flamboyant attire. The stranger sported a purple hat adorned with vibrant feathers and colorful aristocratic tight-fitting clothes. He looks handsome and has a romantic demeanor. Despite their lack of prior acquaintance, the man acted like a friend who hadn't seen him for a long time. He stood up, waving enthusiastically, and called out. Join us, Wayne. Gerald and I have been eagerly awaiting your presence. The major event is just around the corner, and we're here to enjoy a drink to refresh ourselves. This afternoon, I plan to assist you in orchestrating this grand spectacle. This gambling event will definitely become an unforgettable memory for the residents of the floating port. Gerald, who was sitting next to him, seemed to know the young man's character very well. Seeing Wayne's face was slightly surprised, he cast a glance that suggested not to make a fuss. Although there was no expression on his face, it still revealed a sense of embarrassment. Come and sit, Wayne. This is Jaskier, a friend of mine who just came here today by boat. In reality, Gerald didn't need to provide an introduction. Wayne, having engaged in the game and delved into the original book, already deduced the identity of this young man. Dandelion, the renowned poet. Speaking of which, this guy is also a legend. He is obviously just a powerless poet, but he seems to have a certain destiny connection with Gerald. They always meet in various strange ways, and then start some weird adventures. Although he always brought all kinds of troubles to the White Wolf when he got along with him, was an absolutely reliable friend and a good brother who would never betray Gerald when he was in real danger. In the future, Gerald of Rivia will become famous in the north, and the image of the Witcher will start to improve in many people's hearts, which is due to the hard work of Jaskier. Bala, from before the meal to after the meal, it didn't stop for several hours. But Jaskier is also very good at making troubles. He never seems to be stage fright, or he naturally likes to attract other people's attention. After lunch, he jumped out and said that he would help Wayne organize the afternoon gamble. He took out a lute and sang poems in the tavern, and loudly greeted the onlookers who were waiting around and the participants who wanted to participate in the gamble. Jaskier is a young man with an exceptional talent for poetry. His humor, and ability to evoke emotions through melodious music and fluent poems captivate the masses. Occasionally sprinkling jokes into his performance, he effortlessly brings laughter to the surrounding residents. The residents of Floating Harbor had never seen such a poet before, and they were all attracted by Jaskier's temperament as if he was the protagonist in this gamble. Wayne found it amusing and looked at Gerald, who had been quietly sipping his drink beside him. He smiled and remarked, "Is he always like this? He seems like quite an interesting character, and traveling with him must be quite entertaining." Gerald shrugged, a hint of helplessness in his tone. It's more than just entertaining, he's a troublesome character. I've known him for less than a year, and I've been sent to prison twice because of him. However, he is a worthy friend. He won't harbor prejudice against us, witchers like others. Despite causing trouble, he'll never betray his friends. Gerald took another sip of spirits, and said to Wayne, after finishing the big game today, let's get out of here quickly. Due to the riot you caused, the mayor is already quite dissatisfied with us. He even refused to let me accept a commission. He also subtly threatened that if we didn't leave soon, he'd have soldiers throw us in jail. If you don't want to end up in jail with me or become a wanted criminal, then wrap things up here quickly, and let's leave. Wayne nodded at Gerald's words. His primary goal was to gain experience at the Gwent card level. Once the big game was finished, his purpose would be achieved, and there would be no need for further conflicts with the local mayor. This incident served as a reminder to him that if he intended to organize such influential events in other places, establishing good relationships with local authorities was crucial. It would be best to inform them in advance. No manager likes troublemakers, and Wayne understood that avoiding such issues would help him maintain a positive reputation as a witcher. Chapter 39, Tavizima. In the largest tavern of Floating Harbor, Wayne's grand gambling event reached its climax. In contrast to the gambling match the previous night, the news about the big game had spread far and wide. Almost the entire town's population flocked to the venue this afternoon to partake in the excitement. The onlookers held their breath, eagerly following the developments of the game. The sheer number of participants exceeded the capacity of the large tavern, with even the brothel on the second floor unable to conduct business. Women dressed in flashy and revealing attire were sprawled along the staircase railing, engaged in hushed discussions about the grand event unfolding below. Over a dozen soldiers strategically positioned themselves at the four corners of the tavern, gripping their weapons and observing the unfolding game with keen interest. Their expressions mirrored the astonishment shared by many. Some onlookers who arrived late could only stand helplessly outside the tavern, sharing the lively atmosphere inside with the dense crowd through the windows. Jaskier, adorned in flamboyant tights, clutched his lute passionately, singing and hollering to the crowd. Ding ding ding! Victory streak! The Witcher from the Wolf School, Mr. Wayne, has won again. The prize money at the scene reached as high as 430 oren. Are there any challengers left? It was a legendary victory, a miracle worthy of an epic. If someone can put an end to his winning streak, that person will undoubtedly become the hero of Floating Harbor, eternally inscribed in its history. What are you waiting for? The lucky one might be you. Everyone anticipates your triumph. Come forward. As long as you possess an oren and a Gwent deck, you have the chance to become that hero. Encouraged by Jaskier's provocative flattery, some Gwent players who were initially hesitant due to Wayne's impressive match-winning streak regained their courage. A young businessman was the first to stand up, tossing an oren onto the table, grabbing his Gwent cards, and sitting across from Wayne with a nonchalant smile on his face. The new round of gambling began swiftly and concluded just as fast. In under 5 minutes, Wayne claimed a beautiful Gwent card from the defeated young businessman. However, another challenger promptly stepped up to take his place. However, the residents of the floating port and the visiting tourists were just ordinary people. They weren't genuine Gwent card masters, nor did they possess a complete set of powerful rare cards like the wealthy businessman Levarden. Wayne, on the other hand, had drawn 100 cards from the losers during 2 consecutive days of bets. While his deck may have lacked those extremely rare and powerful cards, it had undergone numerous adjustments and reached a state of near perfection. Wayne's Gwent card level, provided by the system, has also reached level 4 after numerous battles. With the added benefit of 4 points in luck, facing ordinary opponents in bets almost feels like cheating, as he can acquire any card he desires. The duration an average player can withstand against him essentially depends on when Wayne decides it's time for them to fail. Despite Jaskier's encouragement that sparked interest among some Gwent players, witnessing Wayne defeat 5 consecutive challengers and achieve consecutive victories dissuaded anyone in the tavern from daring to challenge this formidable Gwent player any further. The registration fee for an oren is not expensive, but at least it can give people a few good meals. Rather than wasting it in vain, it is better to stay and do other things. Finally, after no one continued to challenge for more than 10 minutes in a row, Jaskier flushed with excitement and announced in a high-pitched voice. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed residents of Floating Harbor, Jaskier proclaimed with fervor, I hereby announce the conclusion of this unprecedented, earth-shattering Gwent card tournament. Our champion is none other than our wolf school witcher, Mr. Wayne. In this grand gamble, he defeated over 100 challengers consecutively without a single defeat. He has earned the title of a truly exceptional Gwent player. He shall become a legend in Floating Harbor, etched into the memories of all for 10, 20, 50, or even 100 years. He is the true champion of Floating Harbor. With those words, Jaskier set aside his lute, raised his hands, and clapped them together to capture everyone's attention. He then announced with enthusiasm, "Now, everyone, I have excellent news to share with you. You are in for a treat. Our champion of Floating Harbor is not only skilled but also a generous and kind soul. Since no one could claim the full prize, a whopping 430 orens, he has decided to reward the tavern owner with half of the prize as a token of appreciation for everyone's enthusiasm. Starting today, every resident of Floating Harbor can enjoy a free glass of ale courtesy of the generous champion until the money is depleted. Let's all raise a cheer for this commendable act of generosity." Amid Jaskier's spirited encouragement, the surrounding residents erupted into excited cheers upon learning about the prospect of free beer for the next few days. Perhaps in the future, they might forget the Gwent master who won hundreds of orens in the tavern, but the memory of the Floating Harbor champion who treated them to free ale would likely linger in their minds. The lively atmosphere, however, proved to be short-lived. Shortly after the conclusion of the big game, the crowd began dispersing under the watchful eyes of the soldiers. With the night already upon them, the residents, content with their free ale, joyfully departed in small groups. Their satisfied expressions revealed the excitement of participating in such an entertaining competition. Wayne and Gerald, mindful not to cause any trouble, had already packed their belongings, gearing up for an early departure the following morning to continue their journey. Their next destination was Vizima City, the capital of Temeria, housing the king's palace and attracting a diverse population of nobles, wealthy merchants, soldiers, gangsters, and the impoverished. Vizima stood as the most affluent hub in Temeria, where a mix of peculiar events unfolded regularly, and there were a large number of commissions, which just needed to be solved by witchers like them. Upon discovering that Gerald's next destination was Vizima, the poet Dandelion expressed a desire to accompany them. Jaskier shared a piece of news with Wayne and the group. The wealthy businessman Revarden, who had lost to Wayne at the gambling table, was set to depart with his caravan the following morning, heading for the same destination Vizima. Upon hearing the news, Wayne's eyes lit up, and he immediately said that he would talk to Levarden to see if he could take over the task of guarding. He didn't care about the poor reward, but because, moving with a large group of people, he could not only get a comfortable carriage, but also get some food. The most important thing is that he can get a mission from Levarden. Wayne has always warned himself that if you want to become stronger, you must seize every opportunity to become stronger. The lifespan of a witcher is indeed very long, but if you don't seize the opportunity to increase your strength, you might turn into a corpse in an accident. Chapter 40, Vizima City. Negotiations with the businessman Revarden proceeded smoothly. As a southern businessman, he held a natural curiosity about the northern regions and lacked prejudices against witchers that were common among northerners. Hearing that the two witchers were willing to go with him, they readily agreed. And he was quite generous, directly giving 100 oren as a reward, and hired 2 witchers as guards to escort his caravan. The journey from the Floating Harbor to Vizima would take about 5 days, and there would be no irresistible danger along the way, so the reward was quite fair. Despite appearing as a generous and affluent businessman on the surface, Wayne remembered that Revarden would later become the representative of the Nilfgaard Merchant Union in the south after over a decade. He had been staying in Vizima City in Temeria, presiding over the trade union's trade in the north, and with a high probability, he would also work as a spy. Unlike some Nilfgaardian officers who advocated slavery and destruction, Revarden was not inclined towards destructive plunder in the north. Instead, his hope was for the north to maintain stability, keep its industry in a less advanced state, and serve as a region for southern businessmen to acquire resources and offload goods. This way, wealth could be obtained peacefully and sustainably. The journey proceeded smoothly, with Levarden's caravan being of considerable size. It comprised around 40 to 50 individuals, including ordinary guards and workers. The caravan included numerous horse carts and donkey carts, making it an imposing force that would deter any thieves from attempting to interfere. The journey remained peaceful as they traversed the wilderness for 5 days. Guided by their local guide, they took a rest in a village and bought some agricultural products and subsidies. Wayne even managed to assist the village in dealing with a big brown bear. In appreciation, he invited Revarden, Jaskier, and Gerald to savor a delightful dish of steamed bear paw, earning praises from everyone, especially Jaskier and Levarden, who were experiencing Wayne's culinary skills for the first time. On the morning of the sixth day, the group passed through a forest and finally arrived at the outskirts of Vizima city. Vizima, the capital of the northern kingdom of Temeria, is under the rule of King Foltest. Situated at the crossroads of vital trade routes, the city was established alongside Lake Vizima in the Ismena Valley, a tributary of Pontar. Once an elven city, it fell under human occupation, resulting in the destruction of the splendid elven structures. However, the magnificent and extensive sewer system left by the elves still remains in use by humans. The city is divided into several densely populated districts, hosting thousands of residents and travelers from various corners of the world. Vizima boasts well-established infrastructure, featuring castles, shopping centers, temples, blacksmiths, merchant stalls, banks, workshops, hotels, and brothels, encompassing a variety of functional facilities. In the Northern Kingdom, it stands as a symbol of prosperity. Unlike others, gazing at Vizima city from a distance triggered memories of Wayne's past life, when he resided within its walls. Of course, these were not his memories but rather the recollections of the original body's owner, the half-elf boy. In his early years, he dwelled in the slums of Vizima, where his mother worked as an elf prostitute. Due to her severe illness, she found herself unable to care for her young child and was unwilling to subject him to the harsh life of the slums, potentially falling victim to gangsters or other nefarious elements. Consequently, she entrusted Wayne to Vesemir, who was undertaking commissions in Vizima at the time. Speaking of which, when Vesemir took him away, the elf mother Martha was already running out of time, but the location of the poor woman's burial site remained unknown 10 years later. Jaskier rode at the forefront on horseback, happily humming a tune. Abruptly, he turned back to Wayne and Gerald, pointed toward Vizima city, and exclaimed. "Hey! Gerald, Wayne, look, Vizima seems to be constructing a new city, and there are a lot of people working." Wayne and Gerald followed Jaskier's gaze. Sure enough, they looked up and saw that on another piece of land next to the old city of Vizima, a large number of workers were working in full swing. The foundations of numerous structures had been laid, and simple shacks were scattered densely around the construction site. Countless construction materials had been transported to the location from various directions, forming substantial hills of resources. Observing the vast scale of the construction site, its area seemed to be several times larger than that of the old city. Once completed, it promised to be a truly magnificent city. In response to Jaskier's remarks, the businessman Levarden, seated in a nearby carriage, added, "Well, that's New Vizima over there. Since last year, King Foltest of Temeria has initiated preparations for the construction of New Vizima. Mayor Vidlard is overseeing the planning of the new city. It was this piece of news that encouraged me to come here with the caravan. For businessmen, the establishment of a new city brings countless business opportunities, precisely the wealth opportunities we seek." Upon hearing this, Gerald stroked his stubble-covered chin and remarked thoughtfully, "I recall that beneath this land lies a sewer system constructed by elves. The interior space is quite extensive, housing numerous ancient ruins buried underground. There are likely many hidden monsters. If they intend to build a new city on top of it, clearing out the monsters in the sewers will be necessary. They'll require a witcher. This could turn out to be a good commission." Jaskier, seemingly inspired, swiftly retrieved his lute and began playing a melody before expressing, "Marvelous! It's yet another epic occasion. I shall observe closely and craft a new poem for the founding of New Vizima. It is sure to be adored by the residents of the Kingdom of Temeria." Revarden appeared to appreciate Jaskier's talent greatly. He promptly pledged that if Jaskier's new poems could meet his expectations, he would arrange for a performance, inviting a large number of celebrities to witness, thereby elevating his status in upper circles. This promise thrilled Jaskier, prompting him to sing and dance while subtly praising Revarden, an act that left Gerald with goosebumps. Amidst their lively banter, Wayne's mind began to wander. Unknown to many, Wayne, having played the game and delved into the original book, was well aware that King Foltest's urgency in constructing a new city stemmed from the cursed fate of his daughter, Ada. She was destined to awaken from the grave and transform into a formidable vampire demoness at this juncture. Given her status as the king's daughter, Ada enjoyed Foltest's protection, preventing others from slaying her. However, with no known method to lift the curse, she was left to roam freely. Due to her monstrous nature, the vampire demoness frequently ventured out of her tomb during the night, venturing into the royal city and nearby residential areas to unleash her lethal attacks, resulting in a gruesome toll. This ongoing menace created a dreadful legend in the old city of Vizima, with dozens, if not hundreds, of victims falling prey to her claws annually. Simultaneously, King Foltest faced animosity and curses from other nobles, undermining his rule. In the original narrative, this dire situation persisted for an extended period. Numerous powerful sorcerers and witchers attempted to break the curse, only to meet with repeated failures. King Foltest even offered a high bounty, but no one could complete this task. It was not until a few years later that Geralt the White Wolf passed by here that he finally found a way to lift Ada's curse and turned her into a human princess again. Because of this, he met the warlock Triss and gained the friendship of King Foltest. Today, because of his intervention, Geralt he came to this country ahead of schedule, and many things in the future will definitely change because of this. Chapter 41, The Fox Tavern. Due to the bustling construction of the new Vizima city, the old Vizima city was experiencing a surge in activity. Crowds of workers, farmers, travelers, and merchants formed lines to enter the city, contributing to a remarkable flow of goods entering and exiting daily. To prevent disturbances in the royal capital, King Foltest had dispatched a force of 500 soldiers to station in the woods a few kilometers outside Vizima city. Their duties included assisting the mayor and maintaining law and order within Vizima. Wayne speculated that, beyond these official duties, the king might have stationed troops in proximity to quell potential discontent among the nobility. Despite facing criticism regarding his private life, King Foltest, among the northern monarchs in the future, stood out as one of the relatively wise rulers. Wayne acknowledged that the swift conquest of the north by the Nilfgaard kingdom was facilitated, to some extent, by the actions of certain less competent leaders. Rivarden's caravan queued near the city gate for almost half an hour, undergoing inspection and supervision by a contingent of soldiers before finally entering the city. With the caravan's arrival, Wayne considered his escort mission concluded. He approached Levarden on horseback, exchanged thanks with the plump businessman, graciously accepted the reward, and bid farewell to the southern entrepreneur. However, on the occasion of parting, Levarden said very enthusiastically, "Mr. Wayne, before my new house is built, I will be residing in the Kingfisher Hotel. I hold great admiration for the skills of a witcher like yourself. In the future, I am confident that we can find opportunities to collaborate. I hope we can stay in touch and build a fruitful relationship. If you have a confirmed address, kindly send someone to inform me. I have a commission in the near future that I would like to entrust to you. Rest assured, the reward will be quite generous, so please do not hesitate to accept." Wayne, upon learning about Rivarden's upcoming commission, expressed his willingness to accept. He shook hands with the hefty businessman, wearing a friendly business smile, and assured him, "You can trust in my character and strength, Mr. Levarden. As long as your commission aligns with the principles of our witchers, I will not refuse. Moreover, my visit to Vizima is not solely for commissions. There might be other matters in the future where we can cooperate. Perhaps." Levarden, intrigued by Wayne's words, showed surprise and interest. Witchers were known for their transient nature, and he wondered what other forms of cooperation they could engage in commissions. Nevertheless, Rivarden maintained his amiable demeanor, nodded, and said, "Very well, Mr. Wayne. I also look forward to our future collaboration." After parting ways with Levarden's caravan, Wayne rejoined Geralt and Jaskier. Jaskier, growing impatient, circled on a borrowed donkey, winking at passing women, playing his lute, and showcasing his singing voice. Geralt, leaning against a tree with a straw in his mouth, observed the passers-by. Approaching Geralt, Wayne handed him a small purse containing 50 oren and inquired, "Now that we're in Vizima, Geralt, what are your plans?" The White Wolf spat out the grass root, casually stashing the money bag in his pocket. He shrugged and spoke in his hoarse voice, "We're witchers, what else can we do? Let's find a place to live first and then check the city hall or nearby taverns for potential commissions. Also, locate the blacksmith shop and the brothel. These two places are crucial for us witchers." Jaskier, upon hearing this, joined in, "Haha, brothel, yes, brothel. Believe me, Geralt, even though it's my first time in Vizima, I can guarantee that the girls here will soon fall in love with me and the great poet Dandelion. When the time comes, if you say you are my friend, maybe you will be given a discount." While Wayne anticipated their light-hearted approach, he couldn't help but sigh at their lackadaisical attitude. After some thought, he suggested, "Geralt, you and Jaskier can check for commissions in the city. I'll handle some matters in the slum area. Let's meet at the city hall gate in the evening." Gerald glanced at Wayne thoughtfully, nodded, patted him on the shoulder, and left with Jaskier. With a substantial amount of money on hand, Gerald was in no hurry to find commissions and could afford to enjoy some leisure and equip himself. Witchers of this era rarely entertained far-reaching plans, most lived for the present, indulging in a life of eating, drinking, and occasional companionship with women. Once separated from the duo, Wayne found himself alone again after a long while, experiencing a mix of loneliness and freedom. Following the faint recollections in his mind, Wayne swiftly located the slum where he spent his childhood. The area consisted of low wooden houses, uneven and run-down, with puddle-filled and excrement-laden roads. Residents, adorned in tattered clothing, wore thin expressions as they moved about. Shops were scarce, limited to vendors peddling small carts of daily necessities. Occasional shouts and curses emerged from obscure corners, adding a semblance of life to the destitution. Deep within this impoverished neighborhood stood a two-story single-family building perpetually illuminated by numerous oil lamps. The slightly ajar door hinted at a relatively clean interior. Men of modest means frequented the premises, their comings and goings accompanied by the audible panting and cursing of women within. This was the business establishment for the impoverished prostitutes Wayne remembered. Several scantily clad women with somber expressions showcased their figures outside the house. Even when harassed by passing inebriates and rough men, they only garnered a few curses. Nearby, a handful of brawny men with tattoos and short knives and sticks fastened to their waists leaned against dilapidated wooden structures, chatting while casting menacing gazes at passers-by. These individuals were members of local gangs, responsible for safeguarding the prostitutes, ensuring their safety, warding off exploitation from impoverished individuals, and collecting exorbitant protection fees to sustain gang life. About 10 meters away from the brothel stood a two-story tavern, weathered but with a slightly cleaner appearance. A signboard named it the Fox Tavern. Amidst the grime and squalor of the slums, only this tavern boasted a semblance of cleanliness. Steaming chimneys and the intermittent sounds of boisterous laughter and muffled curses emanated from within. Upon spotting the tavern's name, Wayne's eyes sparked with recognition. In his hazy memories, Wayne spent a period of his childhood working as a clerk there, assisting the tavern owner with tasks such as washing dishes and serving drinks. In addition to providing food and shelter, the job also offered a meager weekly salary of more than a dozen copper coins, a noteworthy aspect of Wayne's childhood memories. This place seemed like an ideal choice if he aimed to glean information about his past. Contemplating this, Wayne treaded carefully, sidestepping the muddy puddles on the ground. He gently pushed aside the makeshift blanket at the tavern door, a feeble barrier against the cold wind, and entered the Fox Tavern. Chapter 42, Small Talk in the Tavern. Wayne, still clad in the traditional Witcher attire, wore a blue-black light armor from the Wolf School. This half-body mail armor, featuring thick leather sewn on top, was not only handsome but also practical. A black cowhide belt encircled his waist, complete with a waist bag, a dagger, and a potion bag for carrying potions. On his right belt hung a refined steel sword with a black scabbard, while the iconic wolf head medallion of the Wolf School was discreetly tucked into the armor. With this formidable ensemble and his tall, robust frame, short dark blonde hair, and amber cat eyes, Wayne presented the image of a powerful swordsman. His entrance into the Fox Tavern immediately drew the attention of the boss and patrons, momentarily hushing the noisy atmosphere. However, the city dwellers of Vizima, being more informed than rural folk, regarded Wayne with a mix of vigilant and curious gazes. Despite the scrutiny, none dared to act recklessly, opting to feign nonchalance while continuing their conversations. Accustomed to such varied reactions as a witcher, Wayne paid no mind to the stares. He walked up to the tavern owner and lightly tapped the wooden bar. The owner, a middle-aged man in his 50s with black and white short hair, bore a long, narrow scar that traversed his left face and upper and lower lips, a testament to a life survived on the battlefield. Wayne gazed at the man, surveyed the assortment of drinks in the cabinet behind him, and the fresh game suspended on the counter by ropes, before speaking. "Old Uke, fetch me a bottle of Vizima and some rabbit," Wayne requested the middle-aged boss. Uke, glancing up, moved his lips and replied in a hoarse voice, 50 copper coins. "Please pay the bill first, it's our rule." Acknowledging the rule, Wayne nodded, realizing he didn't have any small coins on him. He took out an oren from his pocket and placed it on the bar, suggesting, "1 oren, throw in some extra beef." The boss accepted the oren, checked its authenticity, and displayed a slightly kinder expression. "Please find a place to sit down, guest. The wine and meat will be delivered shortly." Choosing an unoccupied table with few patrons, Wayne sat down, removed his steel sword, and placed it on the table. Observing that he wasn't behaving peculiarly, the other patrons in the tavern averted their gaze and resumed their drinking and chatter, swiftly restoring the noisy ambience. After several minutes, a limping woman in her 30s cautiously arranged beer and barbecue on Wayne's table. Wayne looked up at the woman's face, and his expression suddenly shifted. Realizing something, he didn't react immediately. Instead, he picked up the knife and fork, listening to the discussions of the other tavern patrons while eating. Information in the Middle Ages was often obscured, with most ordinary people having limited access to the latest news. A crowded tavern like this served as a vital hub for many to gather and exchange information. At this point, the Witcher superhearing has a natural advantage, which can help Wayne obtain a lot of information. Just like now, at a table not far from him, two men dressed as workers are chatting. The young worker is physically strong, but his expression is a little depressed. He looked at the worker next to him and asked a little depressed, "Hey Jason, did you hear that? After the new Vizima is built, all those who want to live in the new city have to go to the city hall to pay a land purchase tax in order to get a piece of land and build their own houses." They divided the entire new urban area into 3 areas. The land prices in each area are very different. Not only do we have to buy the land ourselves, but we also have to pay for the house construction. This is to completely separate the poor from the rich. The 40-year-old worker named Jason said disapprovingly. "Isn't this a matter of course? Do you still want the king to pay for you and build a house for you? It is King Foltest's kindness to not let us pay taxes for the construction of the new city. I heard from the nuns in the Maritelli church that the area suitable for us to live in is called the Temple District. At that time, the Maritelli church will also build a new church there. About 50% of the residents of Vizima will live in the Temple District. There is also a district called the Trade District, but only the nobles and rich merchants, as well as those decent rich people, the king's officials, can afford to live there. That's good too. Living separately from those high-profile figures and treacherous businessmen will allow us to live more comfortably." The young man scratched his head and complained in a low voice, "But I just got married to Lisa, and all the money I saved before was used up. How can I still have money to buy a house in the new city? Lisa is pregnant now, and I can only go out to work alone. I want to save enough money to buy a house. I don't know how long it will take." Jason glanced at his friend who was in trouble. His tone was a little slow, and he comforted. "It's not urgent, Rhoda. The construction of the new Vizima will take at least 1 or 2 years. The city hall will handle public facilities and city walls. We'll have to repair our own houses. You can borrow money to buy land first and work in the construction team. They need manpower, and the wages are good. If that's not possible, spend some money to rent a house. Staying in the old city isn't safe. You wouldn't want Lisa to disappear in the middle of the night, would you?" The young man, Rhoda, seemed to have a realization and asserted, "Yes, Lisa is the priority. I'll sell the rundown house tomorrow, move to the new city, even if it means living in a shack. It's safer than here." Jason, seemingly content with Rhoda's decision, shared. "No need to find someone else, Rhoda. I've already bought land in the temple area. While I can't afford to build a house now, let's set up a tent. It's safer with more people, and I won't charge you rent." Surprised, Rhoda expressed gratitude. "Jason, thank you. You're truly a friend. When I buy the land, maybe we can be neighbors. I'll treat you to a drink." The two then delved into the casual banter of drinking, their words becoming trivial in the lively atmosphere. Shifting his attention, Wayne observed a nearby table where 3 mercenaries, armed and rough-looking, were engaged in conversation. An unappealing, stubble-faced, and tooth-decayed man cursed in a hushed tone. "Damn, these days have been tough. The king sent the army into the forest, and now there are outposts everywhere. We can't catch a break with all those fat sheep flaunting themselves. It's messed up." A bald man, sporting several scars on his face, quickly rebuked, "Shut up, rotten teeth. You want the farmers to hear you? Go snitch and have the guards hang us. But before that, I'll cut off your manhood and stuff it up your ass." Trying to ease the tension, a middle-aged man with a thin build and a wretched appearance stepped in, saying, "Calm down, Scarface, rotten teeth. We're all comrades here. The boss sent us to the city for an important mission. Let's not mess it up over a petty issue." Rotten Teeth, acknowledging his mistake, avoided confrontation with Scarface and turned to the thin man named Mousei, inquiring, "Mousei, have you found our target?" Mousei, glancing around cautiously, whispered, with so many caravans in the city and guards needed everywhere, infiltrating one should be simple. I've identified a wealthy businessman dealing in high-end tableware. With the rich folks building new houses, high-end tableware is selling like hotcakes. This businessman plans to hire guards for a valuable batch of goods he brought from the floating port. It aligns with the boss's requirements. He's set to leave in 3 days. I've already used some coin to establish connections, ensuring the 3 of us can join the guard team. Inform the boss about this. We should cooperate internally and externally, only then we can able to make a lot of money. Chapter 43, Unveiling Secrets and Revisiting the Past. Wayne sat in the tavern, silently absorbing the snippets of information that floated through the air. The benefits of his super hearing became evident to him, extending beyond the battlefield. Not only did it afford him heightened awareness in combat, rendering him less vulnerable to surprise attacks, but it also bestowed unexpected conveniences in daily life. In the midst of the muffled conversations in the noisy tavern, the drunkards believed their words remained private. Unbeknownst to them, a witcher with superhuman senses lurked nearby. Wayne could catch even the faintest sounds within his expansive range of perception. As Wayne enjoyed his meal, the hushed discussions around him revealed significant events in Vizima City, insights into city hall policies, details of a group of robbers' schemes, and even mentions of a vampire. Over the past year and a half, the residential area near the palace had been plagued by wild beast attacks and mysterious disappearances. The city guards' vague responses had fueled panic, causing many civilians to hesitate going out at night. The atmosphere of fear had unintended consequences, as even gangsters and thieves refrained from criminal activities after dark, leading to a notable improvement in public security. However, the relocation of the palace and the initiation of new city construction had sparked a sense of crisis among more astute residents, prompting thoughts of relocation to escape the escalating supernatural threats that lingered in the shadows. A wave of panic gripped the residents as the nocturnal monsters' attacks continued, shrouded in mystery due to the authorities' deliberate concealment of the truth. Unbeknownst to the people, the true identity of the creature causing havoc at night was none other than the daughter of the reigning king, Foltest. Just as Wayne found this revelation intriguing, a disheveled youth in tattered attire entered the tavern. Scanning the room, he located Wayne, carefully avoided other drinkers. He walked up to him, and said, "Sir, your horse has been stolen." Frowning at the news, Wayne promptly rose from his seat and exited the tavern. He pushed away the drunkard who was blocking the way, lifted the tapestry at the gate, and went to the stable to have a look. Sure enough, his black mare Lucifer, which he bought from Toruville, had disappeared. Onlookers cast discreet glances, curious to observe Wayne's reaction. Despite maintaining a stoic exterior, Wayne was already cursing inside. A thief had dared to steal his horse from him. The audacity of stealing in a city, where were the vigilant city guards? You must know that the price of a good horse if converted into oren, is at least 600 oren, which is money that many poor people will not be able to earn in their entire lives. Wayne harbored frustration but wasn't overly concerned. His most valuable possessions were with him person. The stolen horse carried only trivial items, herbs he had gathered and the elven bow bestowed by Toruville. Although he planned to track down the thieves later, ensuring they face the consequences, Wayne remained outwardly composed. Meanwhile, Old Yuk, the tavern's proprietor, came out quickly, piecing together the situation with a casual inspection. Glancing at Wayne, he nonchalantly remarked, "It should be someone from the Wild Dog Gang. You shouldn't come to the slums on horseback. The price of a horse can change several lives here. Those guys can do anything for money." Old Yuk looked at the steel sword in Wayne's hand and his amber pupils and said softly, "Besides, during this period of time, a large number of outsiders have poured into the city, and the city guards are very busy. If you report a theft case like this, by the time they come to deal with it, you will definitely not be able to find a single one. Either you think you are unlucky, or prepare a sum of money, maybe you can buy your horse back from the Wild Dog Gang." Wayne raised his eyebrows and asked a little funny, "They stole something from me and asked me to buy it back with my own money. This Wild Dog Gang is quite courageous." Old Yuk frowned and looked at Wayne, and warned, "Young man, I know you should have some special skills, and maybe some swordsmanship skills, but the Wild Dog Gang has dozens of members, and they are all villainous bastards. Their boss Dog King is also good at training dogs. He has raised a lot of vicious dogs. Most people can't afford to mess with them. You don't want to lose your life because of a horse." Wayne nodded and did not speak. He suddenly noticed that the boy who had just told him that the horse had been stolen had also walked out of the tavern. His thin body in rags was shivering in the cold wind. Old Yuk also noticed his gaze, turned his head to look at the boy, snorted, and said, "The child's name is Alex. His only relative died 2 months ago. Now he is a beggar. He survived only with the help of the nun. He's a kind kid, but he did something stupid today." Wayne's expression changed, and he immediately understood the meaning of Old Yuk's words, and asked, "Will the wild dogs take revenge on him?" "A kid." Old Yuk spat on the ground and said in disgust. "These rascals are ruthless, but they won't tangle with nobles and the wealthy, so the city guards turn a blind eye." Old Yuk shared, his experienced demeanor evident. "I've seen my fair share. Gangs like the Wild Dog Gang don't last. In a few years, they'll be replaced, and these wild dog bastards will end up in some stinking ditch, forgotten. It's an endless cycle wherever people gather." "Wayne," cutting to the chase, queried, "Old Yuk, do you remember the half-elf kid who worked in your shop 10 years ago?" Old Yuk turned, squinting at Wayne for more than 10 seconds before recognition dawned. "I thought you looked familiar. You're Wayne, right? I remember you. A witcher now, with those cat-like eyes." Surprised by the owner's recollection after so many years, Wayne inquired, "You remember me, Old Yuk?" The tavern owner snorted dismissively, "I have a good memory. If your mother, Martha, hadn't begged me several times, I wouldn't have taken in a kid like you who couldn't do a damn thing." Ignoring the gruff tone, Wayne pressed on, concerned about his past. "What happened to my mother? Do you know about her?" The tavern owner, avoiding eye contact, sighed, revealing a more somber side. "What could be done? Even the Melite church nuns couldn't cure her illness. She succumbed to it within 2 months of your departure. Melissa took care of the burial arrangements, and Martha's grave is now in the church cemetery," Old Yuk disclosed. Wayne's countenance shifted, stirred by an invisible impulse that compelled him to visit Martha's grave. He sighed, seeking clarification, "Melissa? Aunt Melissa? The one who just served me wine and meat?" In Wayne's hazy recollection, Melissa was a woman with whom his mother shared a close bond during challenging times, a relationship akin to mutual support rather than sisterhood. Old Yuk, once again disdainful, confirmed, 5 or 6 years ago, a client injured her, breaking her leg. I pitied her, so I took her in. I wouldn't keep someone useless around if I didn't see her putting in hard work. Chapter 44, Wild Dog Gang. After receiving the desired information, Wayne didn't linger in the pub. He beckoned and called out to the boy named Alex. With a deft flick of his thumb, a golden oren landed in the boy's hand. Wayne offered a friendly smile to Alex and then turned to address Old Yuk. "Keep an eye on him for now. I'll go and deal with the Wild Dog Gang, retrieve my mount, and return to check in with you." Upon hearing Wayne's intentions, Old Yuk's expression soured, and his voice took on a more irritable tone as he exclaimed, "Young man, why won't you heed the advice? While a horse may be valuable, it's not worth risking your life over." Wayne chuckled, interpreting today's task as unfinished business. He replied to Old Yuk with a proposition. "Old Yuk, given that the wild dogs are a ruthless bunch, if I successfully get rid of them, you'll have to treat me with the best wine your establishment has to offer. How does that sound?" Old Yuk, visibly annoyed, responded with a loud curse. "You bastard, you don't know what's good and what's wrong. I'm trying to persuade you, but you're still so stubborn. Fine, if you're set on this course, no one can dissuade you. If you really succeed in eliminating the Wild Dog Gang, you can enjoy free access to the wine in my shop. I only hope you witchers live up to the tales we've heard." Wayne, indifferent to Old Yuk's harsh tone, gladly accepted the expert-level task triggered by the command "Eliminate Wild Dog Gang." Waving goodbye to Old Yuk, he released his heightened senses and sought the scent of his mount, Lucifer, in the air. Having been together for several months, Wayne was very familiar with its smell, especially when mixed with the herbs he had collected. He searched and chased the scent all the way, soon walking out of the slums of Old Vizima and reaching the main road connecting various areas. However, what surprised him was that the direction guided by the smell did not lead to the crowded places in the city but directly out of the city along the road. Wayne was even more delighted because he had been thinking that if all the Wild Dog Gang members were in the city, it would not be easy for him to attack. After all, this was the capital of Temeria, and large-scale casualties would attract the attention of the city guards, potentially leading to expulsion. Now, it seemed that the Wild Dog Gang's location was likely outside the city, in places ungoverned by law, where might dictate authority. With this in mind, Wayne quickened his pace. It was only noon, and any delay might affect his plans for the afternoon. Dealing with local hooligans wasn't worth the trouble. Soon, Wayne chased out of the old city of Vizima following the scent. Because the degree of mutation was not obvious, the guards in charge of the city gate only regarded him as a mercenary seeking employment in the city. Unaware of his identity as a witcher, they ignored him and allowed him to pass. Exiting the city gate, Wayne followed the scent for another 7 or 8 miles, leading him to a deserted farm. There, he spotted 2 oddly attired men in cotton clothes with tattoos, guiding his horse Lucifer into the farm stables. Near the farm's gate, 4 similarly dressed men leaned against the wooden wall, armed with simple weapons like wooden sticks, axes, and short knives. They chatted or dozed off, seemingly bored. Notably, besides these men, a massive vicious dog squatted obediently, exuding an intimidating presence with shiny fur, powerful muscles, sharp fangs, and fierce eyes, a clear sign of well-trained fighting dogs. However, Wayne is not an ordinary person and vicious dogs are no better than drowners in front of him. Since the mission is to eliminate the wild dog gang, he is too lazy to talk nonsense with these dying people. Seizing the opportunity while the 4 men and their dogs remained unaware of his approach, Wayne retrieved a devil puff ball from his bag and threw it without warning. The highly poisonous gas bomb, concocted from a blend of toxic herbs and biological toxins extracted from monsters, unleashed a green smoke upon explosion. The 4 men and their, caught off guard, failed to react to the sudden attack. Enveloped in the toxic green fog, they succumbed to severe coughing and burning pain, rendering them incapacitated. Writhing in agony, they lay within the spreading green fog, gradually succumbing to the lethal effects. Meanwhile, the 2 wild dog gang members inside the farm, who had just led Lucifer in, noticed the commotion at the gate. Abandoning the horse, they frantically shouted towards the inside, probably calling for support. Following their yelling, a dozen members of the wild dog gang and a dozen vicious dogs rushed out of the farmhouse in no time. Armed with weapons, the gang members rushed toward the 2 shouting comrades for some unknown reason. When they looked up, they found no visible enemy, prompting them to inquire about the situation from the 2 individuals. A few bolder gang members, with weapons in hand, covered their mouths and noses, attempting to approach the green fog released by the devil puff. Their intention was to rescue the 4 gang members lying in the poisonous gas, unaware that these individuals had already lost their lives. Wayne had lurked near the farm gate under the cover of grass, observing the gang of wild dogs attempting to approach the poisonous gas. With a sinister smile on his lips, he stood up directly from the grass. Before the gang members could react, he drew an upside-down triangle sign in the air with his left hand and gently pushed forward. A violent gust of wind spurted out from his left hand, forming a powerful fan-shaped shockwave. It directly hit the still-spreading green poisonous mist and the gang of wild dogs behind the poisonous mist trying to approach, using art sign. With a bang, the green poisonous mist quickly spread toward the farm under the force of Art's seal, knocking the few wild dog gang members close to the poisonous mist directly to the ground. However, before they could struggle to stand up, a figure wearing dark blue light armor and holding a refined sword appeared coldly, ignoring the enveloping poisonous mist, and reached their side. Pft! 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 In just a second or two, the sword in that figure's hand transformed into several afterimages, instantly cutting the throats of several wild dog gang members lying on their backs. Blood sprayed out, immediately staining the farm's grass red, and the struggles of the gang members stopped abruptly. They all clutched their throats, losing their lives in pain. Wayne flicked the steel sword in his hand lightly, causing the blood remaining on the tip to escape from the blade, allowing the sword to return to its gleaming state. Holding the sword flat, he confronted the remaining wild dogs in the farm, adopting a defensive posture of the wolf school swordsmanship. A cruel smile played on the corner of his mouth as he sternly shouted, "You bastards, consider this as a reward for stealing my horse." Chapter 45, Killing. Wayne's striking appearance exuded an intense intimidation, particularly due to the cold, murderous intent apparent in every one of his movements. This instilled a sense of fear in the wild dog gang, a group of small-time thieves accustomed to causing chaos in the market. However, despite Wayne's formidable presence, the gang held a substantial numerical advantage. Setting aside the unfortunate 7 or 8 members who had fallen victim to Wayne's actions, approximately 20 remained on the farm. Adding the vicious dogs they had under their control, the total number had surpassed 40. With such overwhelming numbers, it was not only sufficient for encircling and subduing an individual but could potentially lead to devastating consequences for an entire village. A robust man with a bald head and a scarred face, wielding a steel knife, appeared to be the de facto leader of the Wild Dog Gang. He was the first to react to the situation, promptly seizing a young man beside him. "Go and inform the boss that there is a strong enemy attacking us, let the boss come to support us." Having given the order, the bald-headed man pushed the young messenger away, pointed his steel knife at Wayne, and declared, "Don't be afraid, he is alone with just a sword. No matter how formidable he may be, our sheer numbers can easily overwhelm him. Let's drown him in a sea of our collective strength. Release the dogs, let them tear him apart." Upon receiving the leader's command, other members of the Wild Dog Gang inserted 2 fingers into their mouths and emitted a series of loud whistles, as if summoning courage for the impending confrontation. Upon hearing the whistles, the vicious dogs beside the Wild Dog Gang appeared to have received a command. Their expressions and movements intensified, their eyes glowed fiercely, and their mouths emitted harsh barks as they surged toward Wayne in a swarm. Approximately 20 of these trained dogs, not much weaker than wild wolves in terms of strength and speed, sprinted on all fours, reaching Wayne in just a matter of seconds. However, facing these wild beasts with open mouths and dripping saliva, Wayne had already devised a strategy. As the saying goes, fire is a powerful weapon, and these shiny, fur-covered vicious dogs were like torches waiting to be ignited. Before the Wild Dog Gang members could issue any orders, Wayne had accumulated magic power in his hands. When 4 or 5 of the dogs approached him, he unleashed an ignicine, expelling about 1/3 of the magic power within him. Instantly, orange-red flames with suffocating heat engulfed the space about 10 meters in front of Wayne. Not only were the dogs in the immediate vicinity ignited, but even those behind were affected. Their shiny fur proved to be an excellent accelerant, turning them into burning torches one by one within the intense flames. The once ear-piercing barks transformed into desperate howls of dying, and the pungent odor of burnt fur permeated the farm. Fire, being the bane of all animals, struck fear into the hearts of these creatures. Witnessing almost half of their canine companions burned to charcoal, the remaining dogs, despite their master's calls, hesitated to advance. Clamping their tails and restlessly scratching the ground with their limbs, they refused to move forward. Squinting his eyes, Wayne surveyed the aftermath of the seal with satisfaction. The strengthened ignicine demonstrated a destructive power beyond the realm of mere trickery, surpassing the fire spells wielded by warlocks. If some warlocks were to witness this scene, they might find themselves astonished. The Wild Dog Gang members on the farm, unaccustomed to the wider world, were terrified by the unfamiliar sight. As urban troublemakers, they had never encountered a genuine spellcaster before, and the formidable power of Wayne's ignicine seriously undermined their confidence. This ragtag group faced Wayne's swift onslaught, and several members, overwhelmed with fear, dropped their weapons and retreated a few steps back. Muttering to himself, one member exclaimed, "Wizard, it's a wizard! Those monsters are coming to kill us!" Despite the boldness of the bald man, Wayne's spells had not left him unscathed. He swallowed nervously, observed the cowardice of his subordinates, and contemplated the impending punishment from their boss for the losers. "Don't be afraid, everyone, rush forward. He can only cast the spell once. With our numbers, we can easily subdue him," the bald man urged. Witnessing the hesitancy of his followers, he resorted to threats, saying, "Think about your fates. If you run, the boss will surely feed you to Hog afterward." The mention of Hog seemed to strike fear into the hearts of the Wild Dog Gang members. Upon hearing the name, those who had been momentarily distracted regained their courage. A few straightforward individuals raised their weapons and charged toward Wayne with screams. This time, Wayne opted not to cast any. Instead, he enveloped himself in a layer of Quen shield and confronted the approaching attackers. Although the ignicine was potent, Wayne recognized the need to conserve his magical energy, unsure of the challenges he might face ahead. The first adversary Wayne confronted was a stout man with a robust physique. Clad in brown leather armor and wielding a mace, the man, accustomed to street fighting, sought to use his bulk body to overpower Wayne, who wielded a steel sword. Wayne steadily took a half step to the right, evading the oncoming attacker's pounce with nimble agility. Simultaneously, his steel sword thrust upward at an angle, piercing directly into the throat of his assailant. The inertia of the staggered body led to the sword slicing through, severing half of the neck in a swift motion. A middle-aged man, who had been following closely, was momentarily taken aback by Wayne's precise movements. Despite this, he had already rushed in front of Wayne, instinctively raising the axe in his hand and shouting as he brought it down. Confronted with this unskilled attack, Wayne merely turned sideways without altering his footwork, effortlessly avoiding the trajectory of the axe. His steel sword swung mercilessly sideways, severing the man's two arms that held the axe. The sword then pulled upward, slicing open the man's stomach, leaving him writhing on the ground, clutching his exposed internal organs and howling in misery. After dealing with two members in quick succession, Wayne shook off the blood from his sword and advanced expressionlessly towards the remaining members of the Wild Dog gang. The third assailant wielded a rusty scythe, possibly a former farmer. He bent down in an attempt to cut Wayne's legs with the scythe, inadvertently exposing his neck in the process. Wayne harbored no mercy, his steel sword moved even faster. Before the man's sickle could touch his legs, Wayne's sword flashed, swiftly decapitating him. As blood sprayed like a fountain onto Wayne's face, a warm sensation stirred destructive desires within him. Wayne's eyes gleamed brightly. Having dealing with the three of them consecutively, he found dealing with these humans seemingly easier than fighting with drowners. The lack of hesitation and fear in the drowners' attacks set them apart. The primary difference lay in the fact that the mob before him lacked any professional training, relying solely on instinctive and clumsy attacks. It seemed like a mere jest to challenge a sword master with over a decade of training. The swift, clean killings by Wayne seemed to instill fear in the remaining gang members, as he dispatched three of them in less than 10 seconds. The efficiency displayed by Wayne was overwhelming for these gangsters who typically relied on their numbers for blackmail and bullying, shaking their usual bravado to its core. Some gang members experienced dizziness, lingering fear in their hearts, and numbness in their limbs. However, the lead bald man, undeterred by the gruesome killings before him, gritted his teeth and locked eyes with Wayne. As a military deserter with battlefield experience, he may not have been deemed particularly brave, but he understood from witnessing wars that swordsmanship masters faced challenges similar to ordinary people when besieged. Witnessing the scattered hearts and unstable morale among his comrades, a mix of timidity and ferocity flashed through the bald man's thoughts. To boost their morale, he raised the steel knife in his hand, exchanged glances with his members, and shouted emphatically, "Hold on, follow me. The boss will be here soon. When he arrives, this guy will be dead. We must shatter his bones and tear him into pieces to avenge our fallen brother." After delivering this rallying cry, the bald-headed man felt a surge of determination and took the lead, charging towards Wayne with a weapon in hand. Chapter 46, Wild Boar. Wayne watched blankly as the bald man led people rushing towards him, his eyes quickly scanned the battlefield. Observing that others were still hesitant and didn't dare to step forward, he decided to intensify his efforts to break their will to fight. He stretched out his left hand and struck Artsign head-on, sending the bald man and the two people around him into the air. Then, using both feet, he rapidly moved to the position where the three had fallen to the ground. He kicked a man attempting to stop him and mercilessly cut the throats of the three with the steel sword in his hand. The combination of sign and swordsmanship proved highly effective, swiftly quashing the enemy's resistance. With the death of the bald man, the will of the rabble was finally shattered. Shaking their bodies and exchanging uncertain glances, some chose to run away. Witnessing this, the other helpers lost their active fighting spirit. They stared at Wayne with terrified eyes, held their weapons, and quickly retreated in the opposite direction of the farm. Wayne snorted coldly, reaching out to retrieve two throwing knives from his lower back. He aimed at the backs of the two fleeing individuals and threw the knives hard, hitting their backs accurately. The wails of these two unlucky individuals not only failed to elicit help from their companions but instead accelerated the escape of the others. In less than a minute, only those people lying on the ground were left in the farmyard. Holding the steel sword, Wayne pondered for a moment. Instead of chasing the fleeing individuals, he walked behind the two unlucky ones still alive. With an expressionless face, he raised the steel sword and pierced their necks from top to bottom, ending their lives. After all, his purpose was only to destroy the Wild Dog gang, not to exterminate it entirely. Excessive killings could raise suspicions. Just as Wayne was about to delve deeper into the farm to continue his investigation, heavy footsteps and a gruff voice approached from another direction of the farm. "Cole, is this guy here is to make trouble in our gang? Hey, the bald Anik is actually dead too. Damn, where are my men? Where did they all go?" Upon hearing these words, Wayne looked up and saw a portly man weighing 300 catties, holding a long-handled hammer. The man had a bewildered expression, pointing at Wayne and questioning a young man beside him. This man appeared to be the subordinate sent by the bald man to call for support, and it seemed that the portly individual was the boss they mentioned. What surprised Wayne was that the man called the King of Dogs by Old Yuk was not riding a horse, nor was he accompanied by a vicious dog. Instead, he had a huge wild boar, comparable in size to a rhinoceros. The boar boasted shiny black fur, a pair of huge white fangs, strong limbs, and piercing eyes. Upon seeing the corpses on the ground, the wild boar showed no signs of fear. Instead, it seemed greedy, with saliva flowing from the corner of its mouth. Two thick, smoky airs sprayed out from its nostrils, hitting the ground. Wayne, still looking at them blankly, observed the arrival of the big wild boar and its owner. The fat man was stunned for a few seconds, his expression changed, and he became a little more cautious. In an angry tone, he asked, "Who the hell are you, and why did you come to trouble our wild dog gang?" Wayne didn't answer upon hearing the words. In the current situation, any communication was mere nonsense. It was better to take advantage of the opportunity for a preemptive strike. He made a sign in his hand and pushed forward with his left hand, and light flew out, covering the big fat man's head in an instant. Unfortunately, the light only shrouded the big fat man's head for a moment before it was dispelled by some invisible force. The big fat man, furious, shook his head and held the saddle guard on the big wild boar with one hand. He pointed at Wayne with a long-handled hammer and cursed, "Damn it, you actually dared to sneak up on me. Hog, rush up and kill him." Upon hearing the order, the big wild boar let out a cry, fixed its eyes on Wayne, scratched the ground a few times with its strong front legs, and then rushed towards Wayne with a gust of wind at a speed akin to breaking through mountains and rocks. Surprise flashed in Wayne's eyes, but his body quickly rolled to the side, avoiding the impact of the wild boar and narrowly evading the blow of the big fat man's hammer. With a loud bang, a tree behind Wayne was knocked down. As the big fat man cursed, the wild boar named Hog quickly turned around and faced Wayne again. A missed strike seemed to make the wild boar even angrier. It violently pawed the ground with its front legs, roared loudly, and rushed towards Wayne once more. This time, Wayne was mentally prepared. Before rolling to avoid the attacks of the wild boar and the big fat man, he picked up a hatchet from the ground, aimed in a general direction, and threw it vigorously. With a scream, Wayne looked up and grinned. The hatchet was fortunate enough to land a precise blow, embedding itself firmly in one of the wild boar's eyes. Scarlet blood sprayed out, coating the ground around it. The intense pain drove the wild boar, named Hog, completely mad. It disregarded the orders of the big fat man riding it. No matter how the big fat man roared, the boar only let out a huge howl, fixed its gaze on Wayne's direction, and charged at him recklessly. However, such a reckless attack was futile against a well-prepared witcher. Wayne had rolled out of the way a few seconds earlier, revealing the solid wall behind him. Boom! A massive howling sound filled the air, and smoke and dust rose everywhere. This time, behind Wayne was the sturdiest farmhouse on the farm. Despite the wild boar's enormous strength, the log-built farmhouse crumbled. The powerful reaction force not only threw the big fat man off the boar but also broke its fangs, rendering the massive creature unconscious. The wild boar rolled over, falling to the ground and directly pinning the big fat man's leg, eliciting a cry of pain from the man known as the Dog King. "Damn, my leg was broken because of you, you stupid pig. You don't obey my orders. After this, I'll make you into a roast pig," he bellowed. However, before he could continue, Wayne had already approached, the cold blade poking at his throat. Wayne asked in a chilling voice, "Are you the boss of the wild dog gang?" Instead of answering Wayne's question honestly, the fat man, whether mentally ill or merely obstinate, cursed, "You bastard! When I get up, I'll smash your head with a hammer. How dare you provoke me, the Dog King Willie, you damn thing! I will kill you." Seeing that this guy was so ignorant, Wayne wasn't inclined to engage with him further. After all, he was just a member of a gang, and there was no value in interrogating him. He gripped the hilt of the sword, and as he thrust the cold blade forward, it pierced the big fat man's throat. The gushing blood promptly silenced the man's curses. Staring at Wayne with eyes like dead fish, the man opened his mouth wide, attempting to say something. However, warm blood sprayed from his nostrils and mouth, leaving him with no chance to make a sound. Wayne withdrew the steel sword, wiped the blood from his body, and then reached out to search the man's belongings. Before long, he found a blue necklace around the man's neck, featuring a round metal plate hanging from the bottom. According to what Wayne learned from Kaer Morhen, this should be a necklace forged from dimeridium. No wonder his sign didn't have the intended effect, it was instantly dispelled. The wild dog gang's distinctive method of taming vicious dogs and wild boars piqued Wayne's curiosity. Perhaps this gang was hiding some secrets. However, with the enemy being dead, it was time to claim the spoils. Chapter 47, Beast Taming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 17, 18. 18 orens, 37 copper coins. Damn, what a poor ghosts. Wayne counted the bloody oren coins in his hand, snorted disdainfully, then wiped off the blood and stuffed them all into the money bag. After the battle, he rummaged through more than a dozen corpses on the ground but found only such a small amount of money on these guys, most of which came from the big fat man, leaving him quite distressed. Such a meager amount of stolen money was a disgrace for a gang, even worse than what farmers might have. The devil dust bomb he threw out made him feel like he was losing money. However, despite the little amount of money, other findings on the farm pleasantly surprised Wayne. Besides his own stolen Mount Lucifer, he discovered 2 tied horses in the stable. Although they were common, selling them could fetch several hundred orens. Finally, there was a sense that the effort was not in vain. Wayne smacked his lips and walked towards the big wild boar. He pulled out the dagger that Vesemir had given him, quickly cutting open the boar's throat and artery. After the blood was drained, he opened the boar's stomach with a knife, taking out all the internal organs and large intestines. His movements were swift, and he dismantled the wild boar into various ingredients in just 10 minutes. After all, it is such a big wild game, it is a pity to leave it alone, and it is a shame to waste it. With such good cooking skills, these ingredients are enough for him to make many delicious dishes. After dealing with the wild boar, Wayne put away the dagger and walked towards the inside of the farmhouse. At this time, the surviving gang of wild dogs had long since fled without a trace, and the surviving vicious dogs also disappeared. Only some personal belongings were left in the farmhouse, waiting for him to search. After some searching, Wayne found the property hidden by those gangsters on the first floor of the farmhouse. About 40 pieces of oren and some gold and silver jewelry were hidden quite secretly, and they might be the savings of those guys. When he walked up to the second floor, he immediately saw a rather luxuriously decorated room. There were some exquisite decorations on the walls and on the table, and there was a king-sized solid wooden bed in the center of the room. Looking at the layout, it is probably the room of the fat man riding a wild boar. Seeing this, Wayne immediately cheered up. However, before he could make a move, the Witcher's keen senses told him that somewhere in this room, there was still a living creature. The faint sound of breathing and heartbeat faintly passed into his ears. He sensed the faint sound and found that it came from a hidden wooden door inside a wooden wardrobe, and it was also a locked wooden door. Wayne thought for a while and didn't open the door immediately but chose to continue searching the property in this room. He guessed that the private space behind the closet should not be an enemy but a poor fellow imprisoned by the big fat man. After all, the enemy would not lock himself in a secret room, and since he had been locked up for so long, he shouldn't care about being locked up for a while longer. After some searching, the results were not bad. In addition to property worth hundreds of orens, Wayne also found a metal iron box in the hidden space next to the bed through the slight trembling of the medallion. Opening the iron box, there was a stave that looked like a dead branch of a tree, a book that looked like a hand-transcribed book, and a strange ornament that looked like an eyeball held by an eagle's claws. Wayne did not recklessly touch the 2 magic-like objects but picked up the book that had no magic response and read it. There is no title, and the handwriting is scrawled like a dog crawling, but the content of the book quickly attracted his attention. This is a book that records how to tame animals. Not only does it contain methods of domesticating vicious dogs, horses, and other wild animals, but it also records some herbal medicine formulas, materials, and steps of some magic rituals, which is quite interesting. From the looks of it, it should be the boss of the wild dog gang who got the method of taming the beast from somewhere in the notes he took down. Judging from these animal taming methods, the dead wood-like staff, and the grotesque ornament, Wayne speculated that they came from a druid. As for the whereabouts of the druid, Wayne couldn't help but think of the living creature locked in the secret room behind the cabinet. Therefore, Wayne stuffed the book that recorded the experience of taming the beast into his bosom. As for the 2 magic items, he did not take them away. Instead, he put the metal box in a conspicuous position on the bed, then got up and went to the wooden cabinet, opened the cabinet door, revealing the locked wooden door inside. Wayne didn't have the key to the wooden door, but it didn't matter. He directly raised his hand and placed an alder seal, shaking the wooden door into pieces. Behind the wooden door is a small space. In addition to storing some food, there is also a wooden ladder leading to the attic. Wayne didn't hesitate anymore, turned around, found an oil lamp from the room, put a layer of Quen shield on himself, and carefully climbed up the stairs. Before reaching the attic, an unpleasant smell of feces and urine came from above the attic. The space in the attic is quite small. Under the pressure of the roofs on both sides, there is only a triangular space left. In this small space, there are not only a simple straw mat and a broken quilt for sleeping, but also a figure huddled in the corner and chained. White hair, hunched figure, old face, wearing a dark brown sloppy linen gown, as if to prevent him from speaking, a metal mask was put on his mouth and locked with an iron lock. Through the light of the oil lamp, Wayne recognized that he should be an old man in his 60s or 70s, but the old man may have suffered from physical problems due to the long imprisonment, and he looked quite weak. Seeing Wayne with the oil lamp, the old man seemed to regain his energy all of a sudden. He stared at his bloodshot eyes and let out a sobbing sound from the iron mask. Looking at Wayne, there was a look of pleading in his eyes. Wayne's expression didn't change much. After observing the iron mask on the old man's head and the thick iron chain, he confirmed that he couldn't open it, so he said, "Don't worry, old sir. I am a witcher, and I have killed all the robbers here. You are safe now, and I will find a way to get you out." Saying that, Wayne put the oil lamp in his hand on the ground to keep the light in the attic, and at the same time, it also made the old man less nervous. Then he continued, "I'm going down to look for the key, otherwise, I have no choice but to rescue you from the chain without hurting you." He looked into the old man's eyes and asked word by word, "In the meantime, can you wait here quietly?" Although he didn't know how long he had been locked up, the old man seemed to be able to maintain a good sense of reason. After listening to Wayne's words, the old man regained some calmness. The bloodshot eyes in his eyes faded a lot, and he became quite peaceful. He watched Wayne nod emphatically, no longer making any drastic movements, and quietly sat on the straw mat that was probably used for sleeping, waiting quietly. Seeing this, Wayne became more and more sure that this old man should be a druid who believes in nature. Otherwise, after being imprisoned for so long, it is impossible for ordinary people to be so calm when they meet the hope of getting out. After communicating with the old man, Wayne quickly climbed down the stairs, looking for the key to unlock the chain in the farmhouse. After searching for a long time, he finally found it on the big fat man's body. This guy hid it quite secretly and stuffed it directly into the hidden pocket of his coat. If Wayne hadn't had a clear goal, he wouldn't have noticed this detail at all. After he returned to the attic, he untied the old man's iron chain and mask. The first thing the old man did was to raise his trembling right hand, press it on his chest, chant a spell, and use the spell emitting green light to heal himself. It wasn't until a few minutes later that the light dissipated and the old man's mental state recovered a bit. He said in a very hoarse and weak voice, "Thank you for saving me, Witcher. My name is Keenster, and I am a druid. I have been trapped by this chain mixed with dimeridium for too long. Can you give me some food?" Chapter 48, Hekna Talisman. The story of Keenster is not complicated, but it is embarrassing. 3 years ago, the boss of the wild dog gang was still a hunter in the forest. He was spotted by a pack of wolves during a hunt and almost died. Fortunately, he met Keenster, who was out on a mission, and the kind old druid used beast taming to disperse the wolves and saved his life. Unexpectedly, this guy had a vicious mind. In the name of pretending to repay his kindness, he invited Keenster to his house for dinner. However, halfway through drinking, this guy secretly attacked and directly knocked Keenster unconscious. It's like a medieval version of the farmer and the snake. Then, this guy somehow found a shackle mixed with demon gold, imprisoned Keenster directly, and forced him to share the method of taming the beast. This imprisonment lasted for 3 years. Hearing this, Wayne was also a little emotional. According to Keenster's description, he was a high-level elder druid. He accepted the task and came to a forest near Vizima to build a new ring of druids. As a result, such a high-level spellcaster, after being shackled by the dimeridium, he became not much different from an ordinary old person and was imprisoned by a vile hunter for 3 years. You know, for high-level spellcasters like them, as long as they are given enough time and find a magic power node to provide them with magic power, these people can cast natural disaster-level magic and destroy a city. It can only be said that in this world, everything generates and restrains each other, and nothing is invincible. As long as a way is found, even high-level spellcasters will be killed like ordinary people. After learning about the general situation, Wayne temporarily arranged for Keenster on the 2nd floor, found some clothes for him to change, and something to eat. He then handed him the box containing 2 magic items. Originally, he was ready to lose these two unknown magic items and gain the friendship of the old druid, but he didn't expect that the old man was quite generous. Keenster grabbed the dead wood staff in his hand and, while chanting a spell, activated the green magic power. After casting a spell on the strange ornament that looked like an eagle claw eyeball, he handed it to Wayne and said, "Thank you, Wayne, for getting me out of this mess. I heard that witchers strictly abide by neutrality and rarely do unpaid tasks. Now I have nothing on me that can repay you. This necklace is a magic talisman I made using Hecna's claws and a fish monster's eyeballs. I want to give it to you as a gift. As long as you wear it, the animals around you can get closer to you and will not attack you actively. It can also give you the ability to breathe underwater and swim faster. Although it's just a useless accessory, I hope it can help you in the future." Wayne was not polite either. He reached out to take the Hecna talisman and immediately felt a special magical power covering his body. He nodded to the old druid and said, "Thank you, Elder Keenster. You can take a rest here for the time being. I will call a carriage back to the city and take you to my place to recuperate for a few days. Wait until you recover from your injury, and then you can make plans." The old man nodded with a smile and did not refuse Wayne's help. Although he had already suffered a big loss in trusting strangers, he was still able to maintain a peaceful and friendly attitude. He was obviously a druid with quite firm beliefs. Half an hour later, Wayne returned to the farm on his horse Lucifer and 2 rented carriages. He came with Old Uke, the tavern owner, and several of his workers. As soon as he entered the farm, the scene of corpses strewn all over the field made Old Uke shiver, cursing loudly. "Shit, goddess Melisha, Wayne, how many people have you killed? Have you killed all the bastards of the wild dog gang? This place is like a slaughterhouse. I have never seen such a bloody scene since I left the battlefield." Wayne shrugged. In his heart, there is no difference between villains and monsters. They both need to be eliminated. For those scumbags, he didn't have any empathy, and he didn't feel any guilt for killing those guys. "Basically, I'll kill all those who stand in front of me, and I don't bother to chase those who escape," Wayne said, pointing to the 2 horses in the stable. "If you can replace those 2 horses with Orin for me, then you can handle the rest of the farm as you please. However, you'd better take someone to burn all the corpses on the ground, lest they attract corpse-eating monsters and endanger the safety of the surrounding residents." Old Uke spat on the ground with some displeasure and said arrogantly, Okay, little bastard, let me wipe your ass. If it weren't for you helping us get rid of them, I really don't want to get involved in this shit." Wayne didn't care about Old Uke swearing either. This old guy had lived in Vizima City for decades. Although he wasn't considered a powerful figure, he was at least a local snake-level figure who had been able to open a tavern in a slum mixed with dragons and snakes for decades. The most important thing is that this guy has a good heart and is a loyal believer of the goddess Melisha. According to Wayne's vague memory, not only Melissa and his mother but also many poor people near the tavern have been helped by Old Uke. He watched the old guy commanding a few young workers with a displeased face and started digging holes outside the farm to chop firewood, preparing for the burning of the corpses. He couldn't help laughing and said, "By the way, Old Uke, don't forget that I have completed your commission and helped you get rid of the wild dog gang. From now on, I can drink the wine in your store as much as I want." When Old Uke heard this, his expression became even more unhappy. He snorted and said, "Okay, little bastard, I'm not a person who doesn't keep their promises." After getting this answer, Wayne nodded in satisfaction. Completing the system tasks was the most important thing to him. Sure enough, as soon as Old Uke's words fell, the voice of the system rang in his ears. Ding! The expert-level task Eradicate the Wild Dog Gang has been completed. Obtained, 45 experience points. Expert-level treasure chest *1. Hearing that the system rewarded 45 experience points, Wayne was overjoyed. This amount of experience points is almost 10 times that of ordinary tasks. It seems that the system also encourages him to complete more difficult tasks. No matter how many ordinary tasks he completes, the experience gained is quite limited. Only one task can be completed every day, which limits the possibility of him earning experience. After looking at the sky, he found that it was getting late. Wayne turned his head. Old Uke, I still have something to do, and I have to go back to the city first. There is also a big wild boar next to the farmhouse. I have already dealt with it. Remember to bring it back when you go back. I only need to keep some pork thighs and pork ribs. You can take the rest back and sell it. Don't worry about selling the horse. I will come to you in a few days. After a brief exchange with Old Yuk, Wayne returned to Vizima City with the old druid Keenster. It was getting late, and after dealing with the wild dog gang, he was planning to attend to some other matters before reuniting with Gerald and the others. Chapter 49, Buying a House in the Middle Ages. Half an hour later, Wayne sent Keenster to the Fox Tavern, where he would temporarily recuperate. He washed off the blood on his body, changed into clean clothes, and rode to the city hall in the center of the city. The reason for his visit to the city hall was Wayne's decision to settle temporarily in Vizima City. After careful consideration, he planned to buy a property as a fixed base for his daily activities. This decision was influenced by the benefits provided by the system. The system, in addition to completing tasks and advancing Wayne's Witcher level, offered a significant advantage of blessing in various skills. For the improvement of these skills, a stable environment was essential. Wayne had gained insight into this during his month-long journey with Gerald. Most of the time had been spent on the road, lacking the efficiency for skill improvement that he experienced at Kaer Morhen. Apart from skill improvement, Vizima was currently undergoing significant development, with land prices being relatively low. Over the next 2 decades, the city was expected to thrive, offering ample opportunities for land appreciation. Wayne had extra funds available for investment, making it an opportune time to secure property in Vizima and reap rich returns in the future. Moreover, Vizima City boasts a variety of talents, offering a favorable environment for Wayne to learn, enhance various skills, and increase his own strength. As a modern-minded Witcher, he aspires to become a respected, affluent, and powerful figure in the future. Unlike companions like Gerald, who have been around for dozens or hundreds of years and still struggling financially, Wayne sees the upcoming new Vizima as an excellent starting point for achieving his goals. However, upon approaching the city hall, Wayne's demeanor set him apart from ordinary residents, prompting 2 guards at the door to stop him. "Who are you? This is the Vizima City Hall. If you want to enter here, you cannot carry weapons," one of the guards stated. Complying with their request, Wayne obediently untied the steel sword from his waist, expressing his intention to buy land. The guard with a scar on his face, suspiciously eyeing Wayne's amber cat eyes, questioned their unusual appearance. "What's the matter with your eyes? Why are they like this?" he inquired. Considering that he would be residing in Vizima for an extended period and had nothing to hide, Wayne explained, "Don't worry, gentlemen. I am a Witcher, responsible for helping others deal with various monsters. However, this time, I came to the city hall not to find a commission but to do business." Hearing Wayne claim to be a Witcher, the scar-faced guard hesitated briefly before a look of disgust crossed his face, seemingly recalling something unpleasant. However, the city hall did not have a regulation prohibiting the entry of Witchers, especially as the mayor was currently grappling with the challenge of raising funds. One of the guards turned to his companion, spat on the ground uneasily, and addressed Wayne. "I know you mutants. I heard that you are all thieves and human traffickers who specialize in stealing children and transforming them into monsters like you. I'll keep an eye on you, Witcher. If you dare to cause trouble here, just wait for the gallows." Despite the deep-rooted disdain expressed towards Witchers, Wayne felt annoyed but chose not to engage in an argument. Calmly, he handed over his weapon and reassured the guards, "Don't worry, 2 guardsmen, I am a law-abiding citizen. Now I even want to contribute to New Vizima. Your mayor must like me more than you." After dealing with the guards' hostility, Wayne sighed inwardly. He understood that the negative reputation of Witchers was partly due to the diminishing number of monsters in the world. Wayne's stay in Vizima had another purpose: to help King Foltest lift his daughter's curse and gain the king's friendship. This, he believed, would contribute to changing people's prejudices against Witchers in the country. Given King Foltest's unique situation and controversial reputation, Wayne saw an opportunity to bridge understanding. Entering the city hall, Wayne was greeted by a well-mannered middle-aged man. Though the man expressed surprise upon sizing up Wayne, he maintained politeness. "Sir, may I inquire if you came to the city hall for any particular matter?" The polite inquiry was met with Wayne's equally courteous smile. Despite his Witcher attire, excluding the distinctive cat pupils and elf-like ears, Wayne's appearance was quite ordinary and even handsome. "I heard that the city hall has land for sale. I came here to buy the land," Wayne straightforwardly stated his purpose. The middle-aged man's enthusiasm grew upon hearing this, and he extended his left hand to Wayne with a smile. "Sir, I am the administrative officer in charge of selling land, Peter Cross. Can you tell me your name?" Wayne reciprocated the handshake and replied, You're welcome, Peter. Just call me Wayne. After the introductions, Peter, the administrative officer, led Wayne into a room and provided him with a manual containing various price tags. In the center of the room, a large map resembling a sand table displayed the different areas of New Vizima City, each marked with numbers and lines. Peter pointed to the map and explained, Wayne, this is a simple map of New Vizima City. We have marked different prices for various regions. You can choose to buy land in these areas, and the larger the purchase, the better the price. Of course, this is just a preliminary intention. Once you have a general choice, we will send someone to accompany you for field inspections and adjust the details accordingly. Peter continued his detailed introduction, maintaining a professional smile throughout the process. I must say, Wayne, you've timed your visit impeccably. Our mayor, Virilad, has decided to offer discounts on current land to expedite the construction of the new city. If you make a purchase now, you'll benefit from these discounts. Peter, the administrative officer, presented the offer with enthusiasm. As Wayne listened to the spiel, it felt akin to entering a real estate agency and being pitched by a salesman. As he flipped through the manual, Wayne was surprised to find that the second half contained information on completed houses available for direct sale. Compared to the hassle of acquiring land, coordinating workers, purchasing materials, and overseeing construction, the prospect of purchasing a ready-made home appealed to him. Given that he frequently returned to Kaer Morhen Castle and embarked on missions in other countries, the house served more as a stronghold than a permanent residence. Noticing Wayne's interest in the finished houses, Administrative Officer Peter became even more excited. Finished houses, being more expensive than bare land, promised greater profits, impacting their performance in the city's development and influencing salaries and future promotions. Recognizing Wayne as a potentially significant client, Peter eagerly picked up a similar manual and meticulously compared it with the large map in the room, providing detailed explanations of each available finished house. The prospect of Wayne's potential purchase seemed promising for Peter's commissions and overall success in the new city's development. Comment. 11 Comment. Vote. Chapter 50, Decisions and Revelations. The manual is remarkably detailed, providing clear information on the area, location, and price of each house. It even includes simple line drawings of the house structures, displaying thoughtfulness in its design. Wayne perused the manual and noticed a particular house with an unusually low price, roughly a third of similar houses. Despite its large area, the location was quite remote, aligning with Wayne's preferences. Intrigued, he inquired, Peter, could you tell me about this house? Why is its price significantly lower than others? Curious, Peter glanced at the location Wayne indicated and hesitated, his expression changing. Realizing Wayne's genuine interest, he decided not to offend the client. Aware that the information was public knowledge, he reluctantly explained, Wayne, to be honest, there are some issues with this house. It has had 2 previous buyers, and various accidents occurred during their stay. They experienced nightmares, inexplicable tripping, and incidents like objects falling and causing harm. Eventually, both buyers complained at the city hall, bringing attention to the problems with this house. In an effort to mitigate the negative impact, the council has repossessed the house and is now offering it at a reduced price. Then, Peter looked at Wayne and added, of course, as a condition for the reduced price, the buyer must sign a contract with the city hall. After the purchase, there is no way to go back on it. As administrative officer Peter described the potential issues with the house, Wayne's initial thought was that ghosts, earth spirits, or curses might be causing trouble. While there are numerous monsters, ghosts, and demons in the world, and a witcher cannot know them all, Wayne believed that, if it was a minor issue, he could use his abilities to resolve it. This would not only save money but also secure an ideal house, creating a win-win situation. Wayne decided to conduct a discreet investigation first. He aimed to determine if he could resolve any issues before deciding whether to proceed with the transaction. Subsequently, Wayne and Officer Peter discussed information on other houses, but most of them were expensive and not very cost-effective. These newly built houses were intended for wealthy merchants, nobles, or powerful individuals, featuring large sizes and luxurious decorations that exceeded the means of ordinary civilians. Peter, eager for positive results, noticed Wayne's demeanor did not resemble that of an average person and inferred he was not short of money. Consequently, Peter patiently explained various details. That's all for today. Thank you, Peter, for providing such detailed explanations, Wayne stated. I will carefully consider my options in the next 2 days. Once I decide, I'll return to the city hall to find you. At that time, I'll ask for your assistance in the necessary procedures." Satisfied with Wayne's upbeat attitude, Peter nodded and escorted him to the city hall gate in a friendly manner. Observing Wayne engaged in a cheerful conversation with the political officer in the city hall, the two guards at the entrance decided not to persist in their efforts to inconvenience him. They promptly returned his weapon without further ado. With his steel sword back in his possession, Wayne checked the time and realized it was nearly the agreed-upon meeting time with Gerald. Rather than aimlessly wandering, he strolled around the streets near the city hall entrance. After a half-hour wait, Wayne spotted Gerald and Jaskier approaching. The duo seemed to be in high spirits, walking shoulder to shoulder with a somewhat drunken gait. Following them were the horse Carrot and the little donkey. Judging by their appearance, it was unclear whether they had visited a tavern for drinks or had an encounter with a woman. Upon meeting, Jaskier grinned, draped an arm over Wayne's shoulder, and whispered mysteriously, "Hey, Wayne, you really missed out not joining us. We started with a visit to a tavern for drinks, and then we ran into a noble baron during a game of Gwent," Jaskier continued. "He lost over 100 orens to Gerald in cards, and in turn, invited us to a private club for a wager. It's called the Queen of the Night, and let me tell you, the girls there are exceptional. Whether in figure or beauty, they're unparalleled." Jaskier went on, revealing, however, the expenses in there are exorbitant. "Just this afternoon, we spent at least 200 orens. Wayne, upon hearing this, was left a bit speechless. Jaskier seemed to be quite the reckless friend, spending almost all of Gerald's hard-earned wages in a single afternoon. Glancing at Gerald's discontented expression, Wayne refrained from commenting. After all, if they the two of them think it's worth it, and enjoying themselves in time is also an attitude towards life. As for the Queen of the Night, Wayne, familiar with the lore from the game, was well aware that the future owner of this brothel was Regis' old lover, a high-level vampire. Many of the girls at Queen of the Night were vampires possessing the ability to enchant humans. This revelation explained why Jaskier couldn't forget the experience. After a brief chat, Wayne brought Gerald and Jaskier to the Fox Tavern, where they enjoyed dinner. The meal featured a feast centered around the big wild boar from the abandoned farm. Wayne, showcasing his culinary skills, prepared a hot pot and barbecue with generous portions of the wild boar. All those gathered, including acquaintances and even the thin young orphan Alex, indulged in the delicious spread. Wayne, intrigued by Alex's character, planned to observe and potentially cultivate him, hoping the orphan understood gratitude and loyalty. During the post-dinner conversation, Wayne revealed his decision to Gerald. He explained, "Gerald, I plan to stay in Vizima this year to accept commissions and will return to Kaer Morhen in winter." Gerald, initially inebriated, was taken aback by the announcement. He wore a puzzled expression and asked, "Why did you make this decision, Wayne?" Wayne calmly responded, "I have much to learn, Gerald. I want to start my practice in Vizima, a relatively safe place with numerous commissions and diverse people. Here, I can hone my Witcher abilities, learn to survive in this world, and navigate interactions with individuals from various races." Gerald, understanding Wayne's thoughtful nature, nodded in acceptance. He silently took another sip of spirits, contemplating the decision. Although he would prefer Wayne to accompany him on commissions in the countryside and wilderness, he recognized Wayne's maturity and intelligence. As a companion, Gerald refrained from interfering too much in Wayne's life. After a brief moment of silence, Gerald exhaled softly and said, "Okay, now that you've made up your mind, Wayne, just do what you want. I'll also stay here for a month or two. Once I'm sure you've adapted to life here, I'll leave to find commissions elsewhere."
Thanks for listening.